Okay, well, welcome everyone to another weekly session of Ask Us Anything. Couple of news items. Obviously, one of the big ones for Tesla is their 5-to-1 share split, which is something that a lot of people have been hoping for, I guess. It basically obviously makes their shares easier to purchase in small quantities. But apart from that, it does nothing really else to the company. I know with some I don't know how you call it, some amusement that Rob Mauer suggested that Tesla lost the opportunity to actually do a 69-to-1 share split, and he thought that would have been quite humorous to do when there was probably one opportunity and Tesla sort of missed it.
I think it's good that they didn't do that, to be perfectly honest.
Well,
how does it work, Harold?
Sorry, say again, Ashley.
How does that work?
Okay,
you buy a share and that's it.
The wording that Tesla used was actually a bit confusing, or at least to my Australian ears, because they described it as you would get additional shares by dividend. You'd get a dividend of 4 shares, and in Australia, you sort of take that as, well, that's kind of a taxable event, but it's just the way they use the wording. So what it actually is for every share that you currently own, if you're fortunate enough to have any, you will simply get 5 times as many. There is a technical thing. I think it's on a Friday. They actually, I think it was for shares owned as at the 21st of August, approximately. That whoever had shares then, they would then be allocated an additional 4 shares, which would occur on Friday the 28th.
21st.
31st. 28th is when it's aftermarket on the 28th, and then on Monday the 31st they start trading on the split share basis.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Pete. Yeah, that's right. So, and then of course they will trade. So if they closed, say on the Friday at $1,500, they would the single share, the 5 shares would simply trade at $300 each. So it's all automatic. So if you've got a shareholding, you'll suddenly get more shares. Your total portfolio will be exactly the same value, notwithstanding any share market differences.
Yeah.
So, really, like in Australia, traditionally shares have very rarely gone above $100 before they've been divided down. Now, there was some talk where, people say, oh, it's not ideal to have shares too cheap, because to be in the NASDAQ, your share price actually, for some weird reason, has to be above $1 US. So if it creeps below, you're automatically removed. But you can obviously do in the same way as you can do a share division, you can also do a share consolidation. So, some of your penny dreadfuls, people used to think that, oh, if I bought a share that was, a couple of cents, it couldn't go below 1 cent. Well, all they actually do is do fractions, or they'll just divide the shares, recombine the shares, parcel them up at 10-to-1, and then they'll continue to keep going through the floor. But yeah, certainly newsworthy. I note that it was Tesla in the Gong that actually did do a tweet to Elon asking about a share split, and Elon said he would consider that in the September shareholders meeting. But obviously he's gone and implemented it before. And there was some talk where there might be some sort of interaction with the potential S&P 500 listing, but I can't really see any real point to that. But anyway, there it is.
One of the other benefits is it does increase liquidity a little bit, which is never a bad thing. So, and that might have some very, very marginal benefit for the S&P inclusion.
Yeah, and you can think of many small shareholders that think, well, especially in Australian dollars, the barrier to entry, which is roughly $2,000 for just one share, is a big lump. And also, even if you have a moderate portfolio of, say, several hundred shares, it's difficult to play a little bit of day trading or week trading where you want to perhaps sell a small parcel in the hope of perhaps gaining it back at a cheaper price later on. It becomes very lumpy where you've got to sell large values of shares to get small differences in percentage. So yeah, having cheaper shares is actually a good thing. And really, personally, I would have loved Tesla to have gone a 10-to-1. They could have easily done that, which means their shares would be roughly $150, which is by no means cheap. But they've done the 5, and that's what they've done. So we'll see what happens, I guess.
Harold, how do we? I've never bought any Tesla shares. How do we do it? How do we
yes, well, there's lots of ways. I mean, I personally just set up a NAB share trading account, and then which is quite simple. You just need tax file number, and if you already have a relationship.
I've done. Yeah, I bought some shares in a nickel, in an Australian nickel mine that has a mine in Nevada called Ioneer. The only shares I've ever bought. So yeah, if that's the same trading account, but I thought that it was different if you were buying. That's listed on the Australian Stock Exchange.
Yep, you have to. Yeah. So for instance, I've got a relationship with NAB, so I'm with NABSEC, and I have 2 portfolios. One is the ASX Australian dollar portfolio, and then you have to add like an extra endorsement. You just apply to have international share trading. Then they have a list of limited number of companies that you can actually trade in, but it just so happens Tesla is obviously one of them.
Okay. So is that I'm with Westpac? Like, is that likely to be available?
Yes,
through?
I presume Westpac has a trading service. So presuming they do, then I presume all the 4 big banks and more would do that.
The main 4 all have a trading account.
Okay, yeah. I just assumed, I kind of got the impression that it was a lot harder than that. That there was some.
There is a what's called a W-8 Ben form, which is basically an American IRS, Internal Revenue Service tax form.
Okay.
Which is fairly complex to fill out, but you should be able to ask Westpac, and they should be able to give you a hand with filling it out. Alternatively, you can ask your accountant, but many accountants wouldn't know how to fill it out. But Westpac should be able to give you a hand without providing any specific tax advice.
Is that for to make sure your dividends don't get overly taxed, Pete?
Correct. So I think Australia and the US have a double tax agreement. So I think it's part of that. Yeah, I've never taken too much interest in why it's there, but yeah, it's just got to be filled out. It's something that they ask for. And I know that when I applied for an international share trading account a few years ago, they wouldn't open it without that form. So
cool. I don't recall filling it out, but I presumably did if they wanted me to. I'm not sure.
You have to fill out something for the United States IRS.
Yeah, cool. Now, one slight complication is I know people, for instance, that have got a relationship with a stockbroking company, and they've actually got their shares in their name. One complication is the shares I have, even though they're in my name, I don't have voting rights because they're sort of held in escrow by NAB share trading. Now, some people are quite upset about that, and they actually want the share certificates, well, notional certificates in their name, and actually, get the shareholder letters from Tesla and are able to actually vote. But I just took the easiest way, which was just add the international endorsement to my Australian share trading account. And I don't, look, to be honest, I'm not too concerned about having my, several votes counted. So that's one little complication. If you're of that bent where you really do want to have absolute voting rights, then you need to probably build up a relationship with a share broking company who can then do that. I think it might be a bit slower to trade. I'm not entirely sure. The good thing about the banking type share trading accounts is you can do it instantaneously. So you can just hop on at 9:30 tonight and do a buy order, sell order, or whatever.
Hey, I'll jump in on the side there. Can I just add one more reason why I did it?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't mention it.
I appreciate that because there's a long list. So. The other reason was I wanted to have the shares in my name to stop short sellers having access to them.
Oh, yes.
Because when you get them as an allocation, then the clearinghouse you get them through can do nefarious things with them.
Wow. Okay.
The other
Yeah, but
thing,
I don't-
also, the other benefit of having the share certificates in your name is if you don't actually hold the shares in your name, you're really just relying on the statement that the discount broker gives you, or you're relying on the contract note that they've sent you. And I've actually gone through some of my share trading that I've had through a discount broker, and they've actually, believe it or not, but they've actually missed out on one share that I bought. So they shortchanged me on one share. So it was just a clerical error. They can't explain how it occurred, but yeah. So you're really just relying on the records that they keep, on the digital records. You don't really have a share certificate as such.
Yes, and you're also relying on the liquidity of that discount broker as well. So if they go broke, I guess you just become an unsecured creditor, perhaps.
So even the mainstream brokers struggled with that whole concept initially. I've used DJ Carmichael for years, and now they're called Shaw and Partners, but they used I think it was a Citibank clearinghouse, Pershing, and then my initial ones were all an allocation, and that was before Solar City days, and I wanted to vote, and it wasn't clear to me at the time that they weren't in my name. I thought they were. So then we went through all the hoo-ha, and I actually went to the trouble of having them transferred onto the American Computer Share website register. So I actually had American shares on there, because it's very, when you're looking at the Computer Share registers, it's pretty hard to tell whether you're on the Australian one or the American one. They look identical, but they were actually registered American. Then I had them transferred back to Australia in my name through Shaw and Partners. So all that W8BN stuff Pete was talking about, yep, it's a bit of paperwork. It's a formality, but it's something that most brokers don't do day to day in Australia.
Yeah, cool. Exactly. Cool. So like we said, there's sort of the easy way, which is just append international trading to one of your bank-based brokerages, or do it properly with a share broker.
And then to complicate it a little bit more, my young fellow picked up a few shares, and because he's not 18 yet, it was, you could create another account with your broker, but we just ended up purchasing them, and when he turns 18 next year, we'll just transfer them into his name, into his account, and I'll just skim a small profit off the top for board and lodging.
That's very big of you, Jason. That's
Yeah.
very magnanimous.
Shut up, Aaron. Wash the dishes.
I want to have a show of hands for who's got international shares, who's got Tesla shares. Sorry, I'll just flick on to the next.
That's about half.
Yeah.
Welcome, Peter. You're new to these Ask Us Anything.
Yeah, well, look, I bought Tesla when it was 185, and I was terribly anxious because I knew they were going down, and I'd been watching them. I never thought of shares, and I thought, oh gosh, they're going down, and there's all this bad press, and everyone was sort of, saying Tesla going to go broke, because they never did. And so hey, their share price is really going down like anything. So I bought 185, which is very close to the bottom, and sort of topped up as it's gone up. Basically, it's funded my Model 3, which I haven't got yet, but it's on the way. And another one if I wanted it. So it's done remarkably well, and it's fabulous for my finances. So
yeah, absolutely. And hindsight, Harry says that you could have probably quadrupled or quintupled your money by simply surfing the peaks and the troughs.
Yeah.
And this year has given us lots of those.
Yeah.
But if you just buy and hold for the time being, Tesla is a great stock.
Yeah. But about a quarter of my stuff a quarter of my profit has actually been trading. So, and I don't like trading, but it's
a bit awkward. I found the way on my share platform, you can't. Well, I can't do conditional orders, and it's a bit slow actually. I don't get my money straight away. So if I sell some, I can't buy back cheaper straight away, which is a bit of a pain. And the time difference is a killer.
Yeah.
But then again, you could just adapt and stay up.
Worked well. I'm happy.
I'll tell you a good luck story if you like. Before I bought my Model 3, I put down payment on the first day because a mate of mine, a Lotus friend of mine, I've been in a Lotuses for years. He told me all about it, and he said, I put down payment on a Tesla Model 3. This is the 1st of April 2016, and I texted back immediately, oh, congratulations and happy April 1st to you too. So I'd never heard of the Tesla Model 3, you see, April Fools. And he came straight back with me with the link for the release. Anyway, so I put my $1,500 down, and I had a Lotus Evora which I sold, and I thought, well, it's car for car. I'll just invest all that money I get for that car. I'll put into Tesla shares, and when the Tesla comes out, whatever I can afford, I'll buy. So I had $81,000 worth of shares when I bought it, and when my Model 3 arrived, they were worth 45 grand.
Oh,
So I didn't. I just got some money together. I bought my Model 3. I wasn't going to get a performance because they're going to be too expensive and all, but I was going to get a long range, but they weren't available. So I looked at the price of them. I thought, hang on, what's the price of an M3 BMW? Well, 40 to 50 grand more, so I could justify buying the performance. So I did. And now my Tesla shares are worth 5 times as much. And I've sold a fair few of them. I bought my wife a car, and I've still got lots. So good luck story. And I'm not selling them either.
well, and
So-
there's a story of people that bought the Apple One computer or Apple II, and had they simply, rather than buying that computer for a couple of $1,000s in 1983 or something,
Bought shares.
if they'd bought Apple shares, they'd be multi-millionaires.
We've all got 20/20 hindsight.
It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
It sure is. So, Peter, you're getting your Model 3. When is that arriving?
About 4 weeks probably.
Awesome. SR Plus, LR performance.
Long range, yeah.
Nice.
We live in Bunbury, and we have to travel to Albany a bit, so long range is pretty better. So, but it's like a full tank of petrol for most cars. So yeah.
Yes.
I think did I see there was a container ship going to New Zealand first and then coming to Australia with Model 3s on it. Do you know if that's one of yours is on
Is
there?
that on the sink?
Let's hope not.
I did note that Tesla's website, I was just cruising around because I always look in case the Model Y becomes orderable. And there are about 5 or 6 Model 3s as inventory cars, but they all say that they're in transit. So I wonder if they might be on that ship, Richard, because they're not actually in Australia, but they're in transit. But there are no S's and X's of any kind, new or second-hand, on Tesla's website. So you might be right.
I was told I'd already left, so.
Yeah, cool. So what color have you got, Peter?
I thought I'd go with white, really, because
Oh, so you went the Poverty Pearl White.
Yeah, Poverty Pearl White. Yes.
The best colour, Harold. Shut up.
I love the color. But I love calling it Poverty Pearl White because it's the free color.
My wife's got a red car, red Mazda 3 or something. I told her not to get a bloody internal combustion car. Anyway, she did it, so it's red, and I don't want to get a red car next to hers. It's just, if you just look at the outside, you won't sort of realise the enormous difference. So, yeah.
That pearl white is a beautiful white as well. Like, it's much better than the old solid white. It's lovely. For a poverty car.
White is the new black.
Best colour for Australia.
Well,
Yeah.
I've actually got the Poverty Black because when I got my car, I actually wanted the white, but the white was an extra $2,000. So I ended up going for the black, and 2 weeks later they swapped them. So the white was free and the black was an extra $2,000.
Oh no! I guess you could have changed your order, but then you would have lost your place in line, and
and the price went up quite a bit too. So.
Oh yes, of course, yes. Oh, that's a shame. Well, you'll have to make amends on the Model Y that you buy later on, Pete.
Absolutely. Or alternatively, the Cybertruck, but that's not going to have a colour.
You can wrap that.
Yeah, you can have any colour you want as long as it's not a colour.
I also saw some. I think it was something on Twitter where you can do it's like laser engraving on the stainless steel. It's kind of like if you've ever seen hydrographics, It kind of reminded me of that. But yeah, basically it essentially just looks like a stencil just being drawn by a laser on the metal. So I reckon that could be a thing.
So would that be the equivalent of tattooing your car?
Yeah, basically. That's exactly what I thought. Yeah. Car tats. It's a thing.
Well, I guess you could give it a deep buff and it would probably buff right through if you could.
Oh, maybe.
Do that.
Yeah.
Throw a steel ball at it. Yeah.
Oh, the number of windows that are going to get deliberately broken now.
Yes, imagine the kids on the
Oh,
street
yeah.
going, "Oh, we can throw rocks at this thing."
Yeah.
Oh dear. Oh
They'll
well.
probably have to make the glass a lot stronger than it would originally have been because they know that's going to happen.
Yes, indeed. So Peter, you're in Bunbury, you said?
Yeah, Bunbury, just about 200 k's south of Perth. So.
Yeah, fantastic. So you're near the Eaton Supercharger, so you're going to be enjoying
Yeah,
that.
that's we're pretty fortunate. I think we're the only one in WA, if I recall.
Yes, at the moment, yes. There is one on Tesla's rollout map that is slated for Perth. But
I'm not sure how we got the supercharger, but yeah, it's great. I mean, I don't do a lot of driving actually. Those drive to work and back sort of almost don't really need a car really. And when I was riding my bicycle, I didn't need a car virtually. So, in fact, I didn't have a car for a while. So yeah, so I'm a bit. The Model 3 is a bit of a waste on me, I think. But anyway,
You'll find you make excuses to do trips.
It's a gadget, mate.
I'll be driving friends around, and I'll be driving up and down the street and doing bog laps. Yeah.
Look, cars aren't great investments, but you only live once, and it's just an awesome machine, and you'll never regret it.
My current car is a 17-year-old Holden Commodore. So.
Well,
you are in for a treat.
There was a study done not long ago about the Model 3 having the lowest depreciation rate out of any car, only 10% after 3 years,
Wow.
compared to 30% for the average internal combustion engine car. And, if you can imagine, perhaps the depreciation rate slowing down even more, or perhaps turning the corner and the value of the car starting to actually appreciate, well, the value of the chip at least starting to appreciate once full self-driving starts to become a lot more complete.
As Elon Musk said in his quarterly earnings report that, the quarterly earnings call, that effectively full self-driving is just one software update away, and that will be one of the most profound changes in capital value, because the entire fleet that has that hardware will suddenly transform in value to unprecedented proportions.
As long as the legislation also is there.
True.
Which would be another
yes.
10 years for
Australia. I think too much value is put on that.
I agree.
Yeah, I think, and Elon has said this ad nauseum, that regulators look at one thing and they look at stats. And you can't imagine a regulator saying no after you come to them and say, okay, we've got a car that is 10 times safer than a human driver. If you disallow this, the deaths on the roads for the next 6 months or next year until you do allow it will be on guess whose neck. So I can't really see regulators just ignoring the statistics and just saying no for the sake of saying no.
Yeah, but I hope that. But the legislation that needs to be enforced for, 5 people in the car off their faces, getting pulled over by the cops. I mean, to have them be fully legally protected, there's a lot that has to change.
Yeah, and
they've got an awful lot of improving to do on the software.
Oh yes, but
and there are also circumstances like when we had that that big storm that ripped through soon after 10 years ago, a big hailstorm. I was coming back from work and I was jumping out, like dragging trees off the road with my 4B, and all that. If you don't have a human that can do that, your car's still going to sit there. You know,
Yeah.
it's not a complete solution.
Another barrier.
Yeah, that's a good point. But if you were in a taxi or if you were driving yourself, you'd be stuck either way. So,
well, yeah, but you can jump out and move an obstacle. So,
yeah, true. Yeah.
you know,
Well, you can still do that. You can still just, you know, the car's not going to go anywhere, so you can still go and move the tree. And
I mean, if it was out doing an autonomous, you know, taxi run and moving from one place to another, it would essentially just sit there.
Well, it would
Yeah,
stop.
you're
Then you could get out, move the tree. It would.
No. I
sense
mean,
on-
if there's no human in the car.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah. So it wouldn't come to you. Yeah. Okay. Good point.
Yeah, when the car's driving to the other person, I guess. Yes.
Yeah.
Another problem is deaths on the road, or lots of things that humans do or cause to happen. We're all used to that happening, you know, as a regular thing. So, I mean, what I mean to say is, people are used to 5 humans causing fatal car accidents. But imagine the headlines when the first autonomous car kills a human.
Well, it's already happened a couple of times, Harold.
Well, it has actually. I mean, there was that
It's still a human oversight.
the Uber thing where the test driver was not paying attention, and then a homeless lady was pushing a shopping trolley or something, and
a bicycle across the road. I think it was a Waymo car.
And you could see in her eyes just before she was about to be hit, she was virtually daring the car to stop. But of course, there was no human there to notice that, or not paying attention. So you can imagine that the problem is, unless they measure a fatal autonomous accident the same as a fatal human accident and give it equal weighting, then there will be this skew, so that even if autonomous vehicles are perhaps 5 times safer, the first time an autonomous vehicle causes a fatal accident, there'll be massive lawsuits and trying to stop these machines from killing people, even though you would have killed 5 times as many from a human driving the same thing. And so you've got to get that. It's almost like a cultural thing that people have to accept. That
it's like when a shark takes someone. It's, you know, it makes great headlines, but we're used to that in the Tesla world. You know, Tesla has a crash and it's all over the media. People that, you know, barely know what a Tesla is come up to me and say, "Oh, did you see, you know, crashed into a rolled over truck on the highway," or what have you. But, you know, what they don't know is that same day there was 5,000 other cars that crashed as well.
And caught fire.
Like the fire statistics.
Yeah, exactly.
Tesla, I think there's a Tesla car fire every 149 million miles, I think. And yet there's a ICE car fire every...
I think it's 10 times the ratio.
It was roughly 10, wasn't it? It was... Yeah. Or maybe it was 170... No, maybe 17 million miles for an ICE car and 140 million for a Tesla.
And you can get out of a Tesla fire. You can't get out of a petrol fire at times. It's so quick.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, but that's the problem, is you get that disinformation and that skewing.
Powerful.
Yeah.
I think the stats are that you're 10 times more likely to have a fire in an internal combustion engine car than a Tesla.
Yeah. Something that relies on combustion. Who knew?
Well, and you could easily imagine that if, you know, 100 years, if now electric cars were the norm and someone proposed to have 80 litres of highly flammable liquid sloshing in the back of a vehicle,
not possible.
It just wouldn't be done. It wouldn't be approved.
That's a good point.
And there's these big tankers going around with that same explosive that they're carrying. Yeah.
Yeah, and you see a couple of those where they do that BLEVE, which I forget what that acronym stands for, but it's basically a boiling liquid evaporating something. It's basically when a petrol tanker turns into a massive fireball in a few milliseconds.
And don't forget about all the oil spills from the ships that.
Oh yeah, and the wars that are fought over it, and our tax money that goes into our military that has to guard the supply lines, and
absolutely.
Yeah,
have you seen the price? Have you compared the price of solar panels here than the States?
Yes, and it's
absolutely ridiculous.
Totally different, isn't it?
we did this a few weeks ago. Tesla are spruiking that their system price is $1.49 US a
A
watt,
watt. Mm.
and we can get, what is it, Rob? Is it 2,400 for a 5 kilowatt system installed?
Sorry, yeah. I saw an advert the other day on the roadside, 2,555, 6.6 of panels. But then I saw another one in the local paper, it was 2,400.
So now take off the price of the inverter. So what are your panels costing you?
Oh, yeah, very little.
Panels are usually about 50% of the cost of the system.
Yep. So we are almost, what is it? That's 6.6 divide. We're 38, let's call it 40 cents a watt maximum, absolute maximum in Australian dollars.
That
So-
is after the credit.
Don't forget.
Off.
So we're about a
don't forget
fifth.
That's after.
STCs, sorry, yeah.
So's theirs. So's the US price.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, there are some, I think that is after credits. So that's 40 cents a watt, which is 28, or let's call it 30 US cents a watt. And that's
So we're one fifth of the price.
yes.
Is that because of the import tariffs on panels that the States has, or?
But they build their own. Tesla, right?
That's
Yeah.
also what I thought as well. So
It's also because of the tariffs. We in Australia, because we sell China our dirt, we sort of have to buy their solar panels. So
yeah, we won't have a tariff on solar panels being imported into here if they don't put a tariff on our ore.
Yeah, and that's the case in Europe as well as the US. So Australia has become a little bit of a dumping ground for some of the cheap rubbish.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
Cool.
Yeah, I just paid $6,000 for a 3 kilowatt system from Synergy, but it had its micro inverters on the panels, so that's what.
Oh,
I
right.
paid. Yeah. It's pretty good actually.
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit expensive, but yeah, you don't have a separate inverter.
What brand was the inverter?
The inverter, oh goodness me. I'll find out and let you know, Richard.
It wouldn't have been Solar Edge if it was from Synergy, I presume.
No, not Solar Edge.
Not Enphase?
Yeah.
Enphase, correct? Yes.
Enphase.
Okay.
Enphase, yeah, that's right. You're right.
Yeah, they're good inverters.
They're little small ones at the back of each panel.
Yep.
Yeah, that saves you the space of having a separate inverter and stuff like that. Just go straight in there. It's all monitored and yeah, very very nice actually.
Oh, very good. Friends of mine are actually just about to put in probably Jinko 390 watt panels. Does anyone know if they're decent?
It is supposed to be good from what I've heard. So yeah, they're one of the top tier 1 panel builders or whatever. So yeah.
I've always taken exception to that categorization of panels.
Yeah, same.
To tiers.
Yeah, it's a strange thing.
Working in the industry for almost 9 years, I've never come across a tier 2 or a tier 3 manufacturer. And that's because there is no widely accepted definition of what it means to be a tier 1 or a tier 2 panel, which means that the manufacturers just adjust the definition to suit themselves and say they're a tier 1 manufacturer. So I really don't like that terminology because it just means that anyone can call themselves a tier 1.
Yeah, I kind of go on panel efficiency, but even that's a little bit hard sometimes because then you've got different physical sizes of panels.
Efficiency, efficiency is really just a function of the space or square meterage.
Yep.
But yeah, efficiency is it's a good indicator. Or used to be. So SunPower used to have the most efficient panels, and they were regarded to be one of the best quality panels as well. So. But yeah, there's lots of other factors that come into it. Before I bought my system 10 years ago now, 9.5 years ago, I spent 6 months researching it. This was before I got into the industry, and then I ended up getting, what do they call it, paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
Then I just realised, look, it's really got to be a lot simpler than this. What is it that I'm really looking for? And I thought, well, really what I'm looking for is the maximum amount of wattage for the lowest cost. I thought, well, that's easy. I can just put that into the ratio. And I did that, and I had a spreadsheet, and I ordered all the panels according to that ratio. The problem with that was that, of course, the top 10 panels or the top 10 installers or what have you were ones I've never heard of. So yeah, there's a quantitative element, but there's a lot of qualitative elements that come into it as well. So.
Indeed.
Just when we're talking about solar, so we can get on the subject of DC charging here, Harold. As I said at AVA meeting last night, 11 a.m. yesterday, 60% of Western Australia's power, the Southwest Grid, was renewable energy. And one of the big parts of that is because of the wind power. So it's critical that the government start getting DC chargers out so our electric vehicles can start soaking up this daytime solar and wind. Because we're basically in a situation where we've got too much power in the state. They've got gas contracts they've paid for, and they've got a coal mine they don't want to shut down in a hurry because of jobs. So the quicker they get DC chargers to charge up our electric cars, the quicker we can soak up all this excess power.
That's absolutely right. I was watching that Energy Ministers Summit hosted by the Smart Energy Council, and it was so frustrating listening to some of the energy ministers go on about the fact that this has come upon us, and we're under immense time pressure to come up with a solution when we've spent 10 years kicking this can down the road.
Yeah.
And it was always going to happen. And now that it's here, now we're talking about throttling down inverters and limiting the amount of renewables in the grid, when we've got there is no better solution, even better than putting in batteries, and that's EVs, because EVs have got plenty of other additional benefits that not even batteries can provide. So, you're obviously cleaning up the air. You're creating a whole new industry. People talk about jobs. The problem, there's jobs and there's jobs. So, the jobs that we need to create are the sustainable ones. And by sustainable, I mean in both senses of the word. So jobs that will still be around here in 10 years' time. There's no point creating jobs in the fossil fuel industry, which the government will have to spend more money just to prop up again in 5 years' time.
Our money.
And one great thing about EVs is, as a load, if they're charging, you can actually dispatch that load and shed it within in less than 5 seconds, and you can bring it on in a dozen or maybe 20 seconds back on. So when the generators or AEMO can control the EVSEs that all these cars are connected to during the daytime, say at home or at workplaces, then they provide an excellent source of virtual energy, even if they're not actually putting it back out to the grid. Just by controlling the way they actually absorb energy and when they do that is a massive boon. And no EVs have to stress the grid, because you can always charge them optionally within a band. And whether that's broad daylight or in the middle of the night, it doesn't make any difference.
In WA, we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on what I call peaking power stations, for no other reason but to provide the capacity just in case it's needed. And some of these gas-fired power stations, they'll sit there for 12 months, and they might come on for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours every year, if that. And they need to be there just in case the capacity is required. Whereas, that's exactly what EVs, that's another role that EVs can take.
Well, they can just stick some mega packs around the area.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that's what Adelaide's or what South Australia's doing.
And that's paid for itself within, what was it, a year?
Something like, I think before they've actually got to that point, they've already invested in expanding it. So I think it's what,
The initial
150
investment
megawatt hours now?
The
160.
Yeah, okay.
160, I think.
Wasn't it making something like $1 million a day at one point?
yeah, and that was from a $30 million investment. The initial investment was $30 million. Yeah. Although Tesla didn't make a profit on that, that was really more a demonstration project. But still, it is so profitable. Where AEMO had to actually change their regulations to actually pay that battery for the grid services it was providing at the millisecond level, and their minimum reaction time is measured in 6 seconds. So, and yet the big battery was reacting in milliseconds. So they had to actually alter the way they did trading because it was acting as spinning reserve, and normally that just doesn't happen. So, and they are actually killing the spinning reserve market. As Pete said, there are some turbines that are running on idle, but they are spooled up to give that inertia and that frequency response, which the battery can do in milliseconds, up and down. So it can absorb energy instantly and also produce it.
So where's the
where's the leadership?
Yeah, I guess how can I phrase this question? Why isn't everyone else looking at what happened in South Australia and going, oh, let's save ourselves a few $1 million?
Because they're politicians.
Yes, yeah, that's the answer.
There's too many vested interests in the legacy industries.
Of course, yeah.
And you've got the issue, how do you shut down Collie gracefully? I mean, they're shutting down units. I mean, they had that huge refurbishment of one of the boilers that had cracked, what do they call it, rods or something. That's super expensive to fix. And yet one of those units, I think, has been shut down since. And
I don't think they give a hoot about Collie. They just want jobs. So if you can relocate the jobs, end of the problem. And you can do that with renewables. You just got to have the heart to do it.
For what is the statistic? For every one job created in the fossil fuel industry, for the same amount of money, you could create 3 jobs in the renewables industry. And these are jobs that will be around for decades to come, and these are jobs that will create, jobs beget jobs in the renewables industry. So
there is something that I can see happening, and it goes to bushfires of this year, but I reckon that this fire season coming up is going to be an absolute doozy. Like up in the Pilbara, I've never seen the Pilbara so green. We've had so much rain come through, and you know what that means? That means there's a load of fuel. So, and I can see it going up like an absolute bonfire, and I can see every fire season now just hammering Australia, and I just wonder whether that's going to start focusing a few minds on, on turning off, on moving away from this whole thing. I think hopefully it will be taken out of some people's hands. So we shall see.
Well, I guess Synergy, to their credit, are doing the community power packs. So I guess let's hope that they just keep that up and also decide to put a few mega packs at some of the substations, which would make a lot of sense. Rather than, as Pete outlined earlier, which was the action that California does, which is actually to automatically throttle back inverters to stop them from producing, which effectively is just wasting the sunlight that hits the roofs. So really, you just need a push to do battery storage and/or EVs and EVs to absorb it when you need it, and in the case of battery storage, give it back when you don't, well, vice versa.
So a real big answer is I've got a 75 kilowatt battery in my garage, but unfortunately it's on wheels. Now when they finally do vehicle to grid, and you've got 30,000 people in Perth with EVs, number one, your EV is going to be worth buying because you don't need to buy a Powerwall, and number two, you don't need all this peak. That's the end of the problem.
Our cars won't be able to do vehicles grid though, will they? I mean, Yeah.
Not until Tesla decided to change the hardware and turn the diodes
Yeah,
into transistors.
exactly.
And that's the end of the problem.
And accept that you're going to consume your battery at a greater rate. So, and that's all measurable. I mean, Tesla could
That'll
have
be battery,
a battery warranty that says you're good for X 100,000 kilometers of driving and X 100 kilowatt hours or 1,000 kilowatt hours of grid service. And as long as you accept that that battery is going to be consumed to some degree.
But if you're running 50 to 55% charge and you're only allowing 5% on and off into the grid, it's really going to be insignificant to the battery life. Certainly with the newer batteries that we're going to be promised next month.
But
It's not
on
going to
another
happen.
point, Harold, how much is it to replace a 75 kilowatt hour Model 3 battery? It's around $12,000, something like that, isn't it?
That's the cost, but that's not what Tesla charges. The last I heard, Tesla were looking at providing exchange battery packs. This was for a 100D Model S, and I think it was in the order of $28,000 US. Was a verbal price on an exchange basis. So clearly that's not the cost price. Because I mean, everyone's talking about the $100 US per kilowatt hour at the cell level. And clearly that means that a 100 kilowatt hour pack is $10,000 US. But there's other circuitry involved and all that sort of stuff. But
even at that price, Harold, so call it 40 grand Aussie for 100 kilowatt hours. So what's that? $4,000.
It's a lot of power packs. I mean, power balls.
A hell of a home store.
I mean, that still works out to about a third of the price of a power pack. Oh, Powerwall, sorry.
Yes, it would kill the Powerwall market. Yeah, it would transform that market. Yeah, indeed. It's a bit of a glaring sort of difference.
Yeah, I don't.
That's
really
why they
understand
won't do
why
vehicle to grid, because they're going to cannibalize the market they're trying to establish as Tesla Energy. So, and the chemistry is different.
How many more cars would they sell?
They're cell constrained.
Yeah.
They can't sell anymore. Yeah.
I still don't understand how the Powerwalls are so expensive. For the
it's
amount.
The same reason Model S and X's are expensive, Rich. It's they can't supply enough, so supply and demand.
Yeah, sure.
You want the company to succeed, they're creaming it.
Yeah.
That's how they're rolling. People forget that.
I know.
One thing that's not awful is the new generation Nissan Leaf. As much as I grit my teeth whenever I combine the words Nissan and Leaf, for obvious reasons, for those poor guys that bought the first generation of it, for about $55,000, you can get 62 kilowatt hours and you get a car for free. And it does vehicle to grid, which is being tested in Australia basically as we speak.
Oh, really? Okay.
So you could basically get a mobile Powerwall system that at less than the sum of the Powerwalls, and you get a car as well as part of the bargain.
Just a point here, guys. There's two issues that batteries are needed for. Number one is daytime solar. When we've got too much daytime solar, we need batteries to absorb that solar so we don't overburden the grid. That's where electric cars are useful, because they absorb daytime solar. The other issue is at peak time, when everyone puts a kettle on and starts cooking dinner at 5:45 to about 7 o'clock at night, there's a short burst where we need extra energy into the grid. So that's where they're looking at vehicle to grid. Now, they'll only take about 5% of your car's battery at low kilowatt hours. So having a 75 kilowatt hour battery in your car is no big deal. It's only going to take a small part of it. But in my mind, it's not a solution to having your house powered 24 hours a day. That's what a power is for.
Yeah.
The car, if we've got 30,000 cars in carports across Australia and 20% of them sign up to power into the grid, they're only going to be running the car a few days a week between, say, 5:45 and 7 o'clock. That's it. When is that urgent need to get some power into the grid?
Does anyone know if there's a possible, if they're going to start offering people contracts to use their Powerwalls, to say, okay, well, I'll do the same with my Powerwall and sacrifice 20% of it, say?
Isn't
They're
that
doing
already
that in
done in
South
South
Australia now.
Australia? Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
South Australia are doing it now.
Oh, so South Australia can domestically do the auto bidder. Is it auto bidder?
Well, it's as a virtual power plant. I don't know if it's auto bidder, but they do have control of a portion of your Powerwall, and for that, in return, you get a greatly discounted price. And
I know that in the UK, because my mum's just about to have her Powerwall 1, her DC coupled Powerwall 1 upgraded to an AC Powerwall 2. I know that Tesla are now an energy provider in the UK, and my mum's electricity provider do actually have a Tesla tariff where Tesla will basically take control of your Powerwall, and you buy and sell it into the market, but they then control your Powerwall. So it sounds a similar thing.
yes, and you make a deal where they will allocate an emergency amount for you. So if there's an outage, your Powerwall will still act as a UPS, albeit at a reduced time.
Right. Okay.
So I think there's a proportion that they may take 40% of your capacity, so they won't ever discharge, or whatever, or maybe 40%.
Yes, it'll get to a limit.
They'll never discharge your Powerwall lower than 30% or something like that, to always give you a bit extra.
So that does anyone know if Synergy or Western Power have started thinking about contracts with people that have got home storage to integrate into the grid?
It's being done on a commercial level with businesses, but not.
Yep.
There's a trial. You can call it a trial commercially.
That's the megawatt hour project or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Richard, you would have been handed paperwork about this. When you signed up for your Powerwall 2, there was a form to fill in if you wanted to see if you wanted to be involved in the trial if it ever came up in Western Australia. I
don't recall it, but I may well have done.
Yeah. So that's for the future. If in 3, 4, 5 years' time they decide to do a trial, they will contact you and say, look, you put your name down, we're still interested.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more than happy to subsidise the outrageous cost of it, and help our Swiss network as well.
You also know that Tesla has done a survey in Germany integrating the new HPWCs and Powerwalls, and they've surveyed Tesla customers there to ask them whether they're interested in changing the way their car is charged and the way their Powerwall is used, and to the point where, a little bit like in New York, where you can actually be paid to charge your car at night time. In their case, it's because they've got nuclear power stations that can't be turned off, and they need somewhere to dump the surplus energy. But in Germany, it's obviously all about renewables. But yeah, they are actually looking at asking for customer interest in having an integrated system whereby your car will charge when it's appropriate. Some of the questions were whether you would do it for financial reasons to get the cheapest deal, or whether you would do it to maximize the utilization of green energy in more of an altruistic sort of sense, so that you would use your Powerwall and car for that purpose. So that survey was just a week or so ago. So eventually it's coming here. It's just a matter of time.
I think the ideal setup is a nice big solar system with one Powerwall and at least one EV. I think that's the holy trinity there. The trifecta. I think that's the ideal setup, and that way you've got the most amount of options. You can take advantage, whether it's financially, whether you want to be altruistic about it. You've got, even if the grid goes down, what have you, you've got the best of both worlds, I think.
What sort of level solar system were you thinking of, Pete?
What was that, Nigel?
What sort of level solar system are you thinking of? Just a standard 5 kilowatt inverter and 6.6 kilowatt panels?
Oh, look, horses for courses, so different for everyone depending on the consumption. So the average home in WA consumes about 20 kilowatt hours, roughly, so 20 units of electricity. A 6.6 on 5, so 6.6 kilowatts of array capacity on a 5 kilowatt inverter in WA should average out about 24 kilowatt hours a day, rain, hail or shine. So look, that's not a bad size system. And look, I think the average system sold in Australia is approaching about 6.5 kilowatts. I mean, it does include commercial systems as well, but it includes a lot of, you know, small systems for apartments, etc. So look, yeah, it depends on, and it also depends on, you know, families' load profiles, so when and how they consume electricity, so whether it's during the day or at night or what have you. So, but yeah, look, 6.5 on 5 is not a bad size. You know, ideally more to make up for the people that don't have solar on their roofs.
Has anybody else been receiving any of this stuff in the mail about batteries from?
Yeah. A trial.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Then
What's that about, Chris?
Oh, they sent me one 5 or 6 months ago, and I rang them up just to humour them a little bit. But if you've already got a battery, they're not interested. They didn't say exactly what this. Basically, you want to subsidise with an asterisk a battery to get data from you for 5 years.
Just marketing. I
was just going to say, is that just a clever form of marketing to make you believe you're getting a good deal when perhaps the only data they want is how many sales they get?
Well, it's a bit like using Google Maps, isn't it? You use the product for free, but you're giving up something. So, you know, there might have been something in it for everybody. They weren't interested in me because I've already got a battery.
No, and they want you to buy their battery. I asked them for a Tesla Powerwall. They said, no, unfortunately, you have to get what they give you.
Well, they listed the Powerwall on the bottom of the.
That's right. They did. Yeah. They did. So I did ask them, and they said no. You have to go with theirs, and it costs more than the Tesla Powerwall, I think. So I just said, yes,
there's about 10 of these letters going around that I've managed to count, close to about 10 of them, all different companies, and the spiel is always the same. It's about participating in a trial and seeing if you qualify, and you know, all the usual.
I challenged them as to where they got their data from, because anybody can go to Google Maps and see who's got the solar panels, but it didn't come with my name on it, just my address. So they play it right, they put it in the mail, they don't do the letterbox drop thing. But I would have been a bit miffed if my installer or Synergy or somebody had released my information.
You can bet your sweet pippy that many corporate and possibly government bodies do hand over information to companies that spread that for a fee, such as when you buy a house, sell a house, rent a house. You know, you'd be surprised how much augmented mail you get on various interesting transactions. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if you're your solar installer. It's probably not illegal to do that, I dare say, provided
in
you
very fine print at the bottom. The fine print on the bottom, you could unsubscribe, but they wanted your life story, so I rang them up, and there's a number on the top that identifies your household, and they take you off the list. Notionally.
Cool. But yeah, batteries are definitely the way to go. And, you know, if everyone had one, we'd all be a lot better off.
Particularly if your first system's a hybrid 5 kilowatts, because 5 kilowatts on its own is not enough for a car. Just to make it work on a sunny day, you really need a small battery just for that accumulator effect when the clouds go over.
One great thing, if you see on this image, is this is just my workplace, and the battery didn't actually fully charge, but all the yellows part is every single bit of surplus sunshine went into the battery and then was consumed later. So none was wasted to the grid. So that's the beauty of the battery. And today, basically the battery was charged up quite quickly because it was a sunny day, and then some was emitted to the grid, which is obviously less than ideal. So, obviously it would have been better if I had a bigger battery. But the beauty is that you can actually absorb every bit of sunshine that falls on your roof and use it later.
What size battery do you have, Earl?
Oh, that's an LG, it's roughly 10 kilowatt hours. At work, we have, at night time, we have about a 450 watt steady load. So if you see the trajectory now, that will last until tomorrow morning, and then the sun will actually start charging it again. So overnight, the factory unit will run purely on stored solar. And unless we start early, say perhaps at 6 a.m. and put an aircon on, you would actually run all day just on solar. And and as you can see here, you've still got the surplus in green, which actually went to the grid.
Wonderful.
But the day before wasn't fantastic. There was no real sun, so you can see the battery was actually flat most of the night. But the previous day it lasted till 4 a.m. And again, this was a very crappy day, so every bit of sunshine that hit the roof was used by the unit.
So for those that are thinking about it, as Pete mentioned before, the average household consumption is about 20, and when we had a swimming pool, it was about 30. So you need, if you're charging your car like I did today, I used about 25 units in the car. Plus, you want to charge your battery. I've got 10, so that's another 10. That's 35 plus whatever household consumption you're using in the course of the day. So it starts adding up on the calcs I've done, and my experience so far is I need probably 20 kilowatt hours of battery, because it's not the best day in summer, it's the worst day in winter, of course, that you need to be covering if you're that way inclined. So yeah, I'm getting some good data with about 23 kilowatts of panels, 10 kilowatts of inverter, and a 10 kilowatt hour battery. So more battery, more solar.
And then you can basically go into the so-called smart power tariff, which is great overnight because it's 15 cents a unit, I think, roughly. But from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., it's the best part of 50 cents a unit. And that's the bit you've got to make sure that your battery can always get past or get your house through. And of course,
that's exactly what we do here, Harold.
Yeah, the EV tariff from Synergy, which is what I'm on, is 28 cents during the day and 18 cents from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. So that suits me down to the ground. I think it's quite fine.
I think if you don't have a battery, that is a brilliant, tariff.
Yeah, I've got 13 kilowatts of battery.
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah. Okay.
And I export a fair bit. The last time I've just got a bill, and I did use more than I was exporting.
But if you've got enough battery, it really doesn't matter what tariff you're on, because you're never buying energy from the grid.
Exactly.
So, there's a point where it doesn't matter.
If you've got a battery, you can arbitrage the tariffs. You can, I mean, even if there was no solar, you could charge it up at night for 15 cents and discharge it at 50 cents during the day.
Effectively, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So while I guess we're talking about this subject, because I've been, we use so much power here at the house. New baby, we've got the aircon running constantly. The washing machine is running off the hook, and dishwasher, everything. Everything's going. And I've been trying to look at expanding, putting another 5 kilowatt inverter, another 6.6 of panels, but then you lose the feed-in tariff. Anyway, where I've got to after our AVA meeting the other night was basically I'm now looking at giving up on that and actually just building my own off-grid system on the roof of the garage, maybe with a small battery as well, and just using that just to charge the car, and then just having the battery for powering the house, overnight and doing everything there, and then just going completely off off grid with charging the car, and maybe using it to power an air source heat pump for hot water as well. So just because I'm quite happy to pay to fit another 5 kilowatt inverter on with a load more panels, but it's just getting too hard. No solar installer is interested. You lose the feed-in tariff. You don't get SDCs. It's like, well, if I'm not going to get SDCs anyway, I might as well just build an off-grid system, completely electrically isolated from the house or anything else, and still keep my feed-in tariff.
Richard,
So,
why wouldn't you get your SDCs on the second system?
Well, because so I'm still trying to learn this as well. The solar installer said that you won't get it, and I think that where we've got to is realizing that the Solar Edge inverter that we've got is a 5 kilowatt inverter, but the Powerwall also has an inverter in it, which combined is up to that maximum 10 kilowatts that Western Power give you. If you can correct that, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, but that's got nothing to do with SDCs. You should still be eligible for SDCs.
They say that I'm not. I know I say that I am. They say that I'm not. And I can't find anywhere that says any bit of official legislation that says you will not get SDCs.
Yeah, I think that's wrong.
I think that's wrong.
Ring the Clean Energy Council and ask them. But,
Okay.
There's no reason why you're in the only time your inverter capacity comes into it is if the ratio between the panels and the inverter is more than what we were talking about last week and the week before, that 0.3. If you divide your 5 kilowatts by 0.3, 6.66 is the maximum, and then you lose your STCs. But it used to be that if you went to 7 kilowatts, you would lose just the difference between the 6.66 and the 7. But now, if you go to 7 kilowatts, you lose your STCs for the whole amount. But there's no reason why you should lose your STCs. So if you did let's say you did another 5 kilowatt inverter with another 6.5 kilowatts of panels, there's no reason why you shouldn't be eligible for STCs.
I think Richard's problem might be, Pete, that on single phase they only let you have 10 kilowatts of inverter. So then adding another 5 takes you to 15. If you that 5 kilowatts in the Powerwall is debatable, isn't it?
Yeah. So the only reason why you might not be eligible for the SDCs is if your system is deemed to be non-compliant.
Yeah.
So
which it may well be with a Powerwall and a 5 kilowatt inverter.
Yeah. So that might be the only reason, but
or upgrade to 3-phase and go for the full 30.
I don't know if I've got quite that much roof space. Maybe.
Put up a solar carport.
Not that much space.
Solar pergola.
Yeah. Solar pergola. Yeah. Jace can give you a few tips.
But then I run into the problem that there isn't a 3-phase Powerwall. So.
Yes.
Well, you could grab another 2 Powerwalls, one for each of the.
No, because then they're still out of sync.
True.
I've got 3 Powerwall reservations because I thought I'd be clever like you say, Pete, and just get 3 Powerwalls, but they can't synchronize because they don't have their inverters are internal and not synchronizable. So if you lose mains, 2 out of the 3 would shut off, and of course my 3-phase inverter would just also shut off because it's grid interactive.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's still okay for power shifting and things like that, load shifting, but that's the frustration with Tesla, that they to date have still not gotten a 3-phase native Powerwall.
Yeah, it will come. It's just frustrating how long it's taking. Yeah.
Yes, so will Christmas.
Yeah.
And so will our Cybertruck, but who knows? It might come first.
Hey, Harold, by the way, I noticed Brian and Jean have patiently been waiting to ask a question about the Targa Rally.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, yes.
No, it wasn't a question. I was just patiently waiting for it to come up in discussion, that's all. But it's all been interesting what we've been talking about. Yeah, that's been good. But I noticed Rob's picture behind him there, sort of whetting the appetite a bit to hear more about it.
So, Rob, pray tell.
It was very successful for John and the crew at Gemtech, and Jurgen and Helen, the driver and co-driver. As you're probably aware, the biggest issue was not the performance of a Tesla or an electric car, but getting charge into the car when it was needed. Now, the main aim is to try and keep the battery above 80%, where you get, you know, maximum performance all the time. For us guys around the town, we'd hardly notice it, but for a race driver, he notices every horsepower. So the electric car, which is, I won't mention what type of electric car, was the donor car.
Kona.
But we're on YouTube here.
It's a oh, well, that doesn't matter. Everyone knows it's John's Kona. It's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the warranty's gone, so anyway. So basically, charging from the Kona to the Tesla in between stages, where they could put, you know, 8 to 10 minutes of charge in the car, just put maybe, you know, 8 to 10% of charge, made a massive difference. So it basically won all 14 stages easy. It won its event by 4 minutes 25. Now, interesting, it's limited to 130 kilometres an hour due to the roll cage, or the lack of a roll cage. It was only 4 seconds slower than the car that was in the 165 kilometre an hour class. So I do believe they may try and raise some funds to put a roll cage in and go up a class.
Hey Robbie, I just got I literally just got a text from John at 8:35. He's loving it. I'm screen sharing. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. He just sent me the same one.
Yeah, I said congrats just as well. You got your clothes on. Nice reflection. Word is getting out that Tesla is a car to pay attention to. So he's chuffed. Good.
He's put a massive amount of hours into this. You know, not only organising charging, but you just can't put race seats into a Model 3. You've got to try and work out how to cheat the airbag system, and all that. So he's learnt a hell of a lot getting this car ready. Basically, the rest of the car, like they've changed the brake pads, but they haven't changed the discs. They've got racing tyres on, but nothing too special. But it's phenomenally quick. The car's quick. It's always been about the charging, and they've sort of got that solved now, which is great. So the next event is on Thursday through to Sunday, October 22nd to the 25th. So that's Perth and the Hills. That'll be Malaga, Mundaring, all those places. So if you can get some time to go up to Mundaring and see all the cars, it's good fun. Even the petrol cars, even though they stink, there's some still classic cars. There's a Corvette, there's a 64 American Falcon, and a few really nice cars there.
There's a 911, isn't there?
There's at least one 911. There's quite a few Porsches, GTRs. So a real good, interesting mix of cars. Yeah.
What day did you say, Rob?
I believe it's the 22nd to the 25th of October.
Right.
Don't forget that Jurgen knows how to drive a car. I used to drive against him. He's brilliant.
He is. And not only is he a great driver, but he's a fantastic spokesman for the cause. I've watched him do a few media interviews, and he really speaks well.
He's
really
a nice guy.
to have.
Yeah.
So any other questions on that?
So is that John's car or Jurgen's?
It's John's car, and Jurgen is the driver. He's the experienced driver, and Jurgen's wife Helen, she's a navigator. She's this one. She just basically swears at her husband when he makes a mistake. Yeah. And if you've seen some of there's when he drove the Roadster last year, he lost control on one of the roads and ended up going backwards, and she gives it to him, and it gets beeped out.
So does he drive?
He's a very safe driver as well, isn't he? Because he kind of understands the responsibility.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, you just can't make a mistake on those roads with carry trees.
No.
He's old enough to be sensible.
He doesn't want to upset his corporate sponsor either by trashing his car.
No.
Well, it's not like they've got another one in the garage, so yeah. Not another Model 3 anyway.
Just another thing on that too. There was a special event organised for Targa, and it's called the Targa Tour. So there was 5 Model S cars, 5 Model 3 cars, a Ute, an electric Ute, which was really great to see, and a Volkswagen Golf petrol. So basically, this was under very controlled conditions. They had a tour leader, and each car had an experienced driver in it with the owners, and I think they were limited to 110 kilometres an hour. And the lead driver, he made sure that they drove within the conditions, because if you've got water on the road, or if you've got gravel on the road, it can become unsafe very quickly. And those cars looked fabulous. They had all the numbers on them, all the stickers. They drove their cars down there on Friday, 320 kilometres. So that's magnificent advertising for electric vehicles. Stayed there overnight and then did the tour. And they couldn't stop smiling on Saturday, these guys. You know, they put their cars at a sort of a bit of a risk, but they enjoyed themselves.
I can't stop smiling driving a Model X in the rain, Rob, because I'm just amazed at how good a big, heavy car can corner. It's like on rails, and I get in trouble when I get back in the Corolla and give it what's for, and the front wheels just sit there and spin on the white line. But yeah, they're amazing, confidence inspiring, barring the rules of physics kicking in eventually, of course.
I don't know if anyone's read, I was at the local shop and I was reading the Wheels magazine, and they had an English article, and they had 5 cars they were testing, and the quickest 0 to 60. No, they were looking at the brakings and all that sort of stuff. And the braking distance, the second best was the Tesla Model 3 Performance, behind a Porsche 911 GT3, and it was about 4 or 5 foot longer. And then they tested it in the rain, and the Porsche lost about 3.5 meters, I think, or yards, whatever they call it, was further on. And the Tesla Model 3, 0.5 meter.
It's amazing.
0.5 meter between wet and dry braking. That's nutty. That's nuts. So we've got good cars, guys.
Yeah, it just means you've got to leave a bigger gap with the person behind you, because they are going to bury themselves up your jacksie, as some young lady did to my tow ball a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
You mentioned Wheels magazine. Just interesting, and I can say this now. The Wheels Car of the Year award that came out in January, that was won by the Mercedes EQC electric vehicle, and I can actually say this for sure, that car would not have won the Wheels Car magazine Wheels Car of the Year if it wasn't for John Edwards.
Oh yes.
Because he actually had his charge pod trucked over to Melbourne, so the Teslas and the Mercedes could actually charge up on that event. So basically, if that charge pod hadn't been there in country Victoria, that Mercedes would have got no charge in it, and it wouldn't have been able to compete in that competition. So
John is a legend.
He's a traitor. I know where he lives.
Listen, if you ever come across someone who drives a Mercedes EQC electric car, just say, "What's that transmission tunnel for?"
Oh yes. It's crazy.
Nigel, did you ever work out why your car suddenly slowed down or stopped or whatever it did on the freeway?
Oh, and it's been doing some weird and wonderful things, especially today. It was frightening.
Yeah, mine did it today as well.
Are you guys talking about shadow braking?
Yeah, look, it did an emergency brake the other day, and there were no shadows on the road. Good sun, clear as anything, no rain, and it just slammed on the anchors. And I'm going, what the hell has it done that for? Because there's no shadows, there was no corner, it was on the dead straight. But today I was changing lanes at 100 kilometres an hour, going from the right lane to the left lane, and I got about 2/3 of the way across, and it lost the inside lane and veered sharply at 100 kilometres an hour back to the fast lane, got wiggled, and I'm going, holy shit, and all the cars behind me must have been going, what the fuck's that idiot doing?
Hey,
No, it's
Nigel, that was just autopilot trying to see if you're awake.
It works.
Works.
I spilled me drink.
It's got me tricked. There were no trains or anything. No train lights. I don't know.
Nothing like that. It just, I saw it as it got the blue thing on the inside lane, and then it just lost the inside lane. But I was almost in it, and it veered sharply back. But it does get confused with the amber flashing lights as you're coming up to a set of lights, the traffic lights. It thinks that that's a slow down spot or something. But I did notice for the very first time today, while sitting at the traffic lights, it was a full red light on the left, but it kept changing to a left filter red arrow, back to a full red. And it changed to a red filter arrow 3 times whilst I was sitting there. And I thought, well, it's beginning to recognise that we have filters here, but it was wrong because it was an ordinary red light, not a filter arrow.
Oh, yeah, I got beep, 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 beep when I went through an amber traffic light the other day. Frightened hell out of me.
Yeah, that was the police car behind you.
Wouldn't have been able to keep up with him.
No.
I suspect that a lot of these little niche problems will get ironed out with the code rewrite.
Oh,
which,
yeah.
yeah, maybe by the end of the year.
Just going to say before Christmas.
Yeah.
I got my wheels done today, thanks, Peter.
Oh, excellent.
With your little things, it cost me
20?
$130, including an alignment.
Excellent. Yeah,
It's
that's
a
really good.
bit cheaper than Claremont. Was it
That was
Tyre Power at Wangara?
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent.
Peter, can
If anyone gets phantom braking, I had one time before where for some reason I can't remember what happened, but basically the car autopilot just decided to try and plow me sideways into an SUV. So so I got straight onto the bug report. You know, when you hold down the make the voice command, and I said bug report. The car just tried to kill me by crashing into an SUV, and that has never ever happened again. So you never know, I guess. Like if I ever, not that I have AP2, but if I did, I was getting phantom braking, immediately I would go, right, bug report, phantom braking, and then hopefully that ends up on a, being reviewed somewhere. And then they, update the algorithm.
I didn't do a bug report, but I did swear at the car.
Oh, I'm sure you did a swear report.
I think it got the message.
Sorry, Rob, what were you going to say?
Can I ask Peter Petrosky, have you got some advice for Peter Terran? Because he's looking a bit worried here about autopilot.
I'm not too worried. I'm sort of, it's a learning curve, I'm sure, but no, I'm not worried about it at all. It's, you still have responsibility for the car, and you just sleep on the freeway is not a sort of not recommended. But it's done sometimes. Look, I wouldn't mind just asking another question. It's about vehicle to grid. I saw one thing a while back and said, and this was when the battery day was being proposed, and one of these other guys, was saying vehicle to grid, really over the lifetime of the car, and you take your car and it discharges and charges, several times in a day, which really sounds quite sort of thing, but you can only do that with a 1 million mile battery. But now that it's feasible, and you're not going to worry about aging your battery, and he was saying over the lifetime of a Tesla, the benefits, he said, talking about $36,000, and I thought, that's getting close to the price of the car. And I thought, look, Elon Musk is going to talk about something on the battery day, and he's not going to. I wouldn't have thought he's just going to talk about a better nickel anode or a dry solid state battery or a 1 million mile battery, because 1 million mile batteries sort of it's passé now. Cattle's got them and so on. This business, the blow your mind stuff that Elon Musk is talking about. I thought this is probably, to my mind, this you're earning so much from a car, you're almost paying back the whole car. Just from vehicle to grid. So you set up your power company, you park it plugged in at work and you plugged in at home, and you know, allowing the auto bidder or whatever, it allows that. And it really surprised me that to my mind, that was a mind-blowing thing from me, assuming those figures are actually correct, for the power arbitrage, for being able to charge and discharge. And I thought that was a more sort of mind-blowing thing than just another battery upgrade that seems a bit sort of well, maybe we don't know really, but it might be a little bit passé now. So,
well, we've got about 40 sleeps to go before the before battery day.
Some of you have 40 sleeps to go.
Not that we're counting or anything.
I've got about 10.
but I think, Peter, in a couple of weeks, probably the last Ask Us Anything before the battery day, yeah, it'd be quite fun for us to have a bit of a chocolate wheel of what can we think of, and we can have like a little bit of a poll, like a bit of a vote or a bit of a tote, and see what who got it right. Obviously one of the big things that Elon Musk is going to announce is the fact that they are massively vertically integrating and expanding their battery production, because as we've said a week or so ago, I think it was Elon Musk and J.B. Straubel, I think, literally in a restaurant on the back of an envelope said, well, if we want to produce 500,000 cars a year, we've got to produce more lithium-ion batteries than the entire current world's production, which was just an unheard of thing.
Yep.
And yet, so it was done. Now, obviously, if Tesla wants to get to 10 or 20 million cars per annum, you've got to just multiply that factor by, that figure by several orders of magnitude. And that's where he's talking about the classic terafactory. So it's no longer producing a gigawatt hour of batteries per annum. He's implying that you're going to have to get to terawatt hour figures, which I think their current annual production is about 35 gigawatt hours. So basically, you've got to get the best part of 30 times the production. And that is an astounding figure, but that's literally just what is required to produce millions upon millions of cars per annum.
The actual process
and energy storage products.
The process at the moment is quite slow, and you've got to dry out the batteries and so on. The solid state battery sort of doesn't have that problem.
It's not solid state. It's the way they actually coat the electrode. It's a non. They don't need to use that volatile organic solvent, which then needs a very long line and ovens. And to be honest, if all it was ovens and a long line, that would be fine. But to meet emissions, because it's a toxic substance, they have to recondense it and capture it, so they can't emit it. So it takes a lot of energy to then recondense that. So apparently, the volume gains they can, or the throughput gains they can get from using Maxwell's dry electrode technology, or dry
electrode. That's right.
Yeah, dry electrode technology is a huge leap. But I think, but I think the biggest thing is Elon Musk is going to announce just how many hundreds of gigawatt hours per annum in batteries he'll be producing. That's the real sizzle. The million-mile battery, I mean, CATL have already announced they've got one that can do that. It's all a matter of weight, of tossing up energy density. I mean, I think, is it Audi or I forget who it is, one of the car manufacturers, they actually underrate their battery. Their battery is actually heavier and has a larger capacity than they actually make visible, because you can absorb a lot of degradation over time and not really manifestly affect the customer. So it's all sort of arbitrary, or relative, really. Sorry, not arbitrary. But I think his really big announcement is just the massive volume that they intend to produce. And I think you might be right, Peter. I mean, maybe they're going to maybe they might do vehicle to grid. I mean, that could be an announcement as an additional service. And even though Jason was saying that, it's not in Tesla's interest to cannibalize perhaps their Powerwall market, I guess you could argue that whereas they can produce perhaps millions of cars per annum, there are hundreds of millions of houses that can enjoy a Powerwall without a Tesla. So I guess in one sense, perhaps if you have a Tesla, you might cannibalize part of your Powerwall market, but there are plenty of other cars being purchased that aren't Teslas, those houses can still have Powerwalls. But
I have a feeling it was the Audi EQC that maybe masks their true capacity. But
yes,
on that, what you're talking about, do you all watch Galley's videos from Hyperchange? He did a really good I mean it's
prediction.
Yeah, prediction video. I mean, he said, look, spoiler alert, really, but he does a lot of research into Tesla. But I was happy to watch it, and I think he's onto a lot of things, and exactly what you say about the Maxwell acquisition with that whole dry electrode. Anyway, it's just a really good 10-15 minute video, and I found a lot of his arguments really compelling about what he thinks is going to come out of Battery Day. So if any of you want to sort of get a bit more up on what's probably likely to happen.
Yeah, Richard, I think the title is called "If You Don't Want to Be Surprised on Battery Day, Don't Watch This."
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
that's the name of the video. But yeah, look, Harold, I think you're totally on the ball. I think it's going to be all about volume and that throughput. And what makes me think that is two things. Number one is they're calling it the Roadrunner project. Hence, that might be a bit of a giveaway. And number two is Elon's gone to great trouble to try and shift this back, and he's been quite persistent about wanting this to be in person so that he could, and in one of his tweets, he said he wanted a tour of the battery production facility or something along those lines. So yes. I think it might be all about that. Not all about it, but that will be a big portion of it, that Roadrunner assembly.
Is that going to be in the new area in Fremont? Not at the factory. They've got another facility that they've bought.
Yes, not far
behind the Fremont factory, but it's part of the Fremont
area
complex there in California.
Yeah, they've got two buildings that they've got permits to do alterations to for battery lines. I also wonder, Pete, if perhaps part of it is also that he wants to announce the Plaid Model S, which possibly contains those batteries.
Yeah.
So hence the delay, because they've got to actually have units running. And I mean, who knows? They could even be saying that congratulations, for the last 3 weeks, all Model S's and possibly X's have been running these batteries as well.
Well, in a way, that's what they've always done in the past, and in a way, that's sort of what they need to do. As Rob's mentioned last week and the week before, it's the Osborne effect. If you don't do that, that's the risk that you take.
Indeed, but it'll certainly be fun in a couple of weeks' time for us to have a bit of a tote and see what we think. And even if we can try and guesstimate what the gigawatt hour capacity that Tesla is projecting. Because it's pretty clear that in future, all of the future gigafactories and some of the current ones will be producing cells in situ. It just makes sense to do that. So a la Berlin, Shanghai. Oh, no, sorry. I think, Richard, you're saying that, I recall now that Galley was actually theorizing that, or surmising that Tesla would just maintain their relationship with CATL and just use the lithium iron phosphate batteries for the Model 3s.
Yeah, I think he was talking about, carrying on with Panasonic for the S and the X, CATL for the Chinese batteries, or basically buying batteries off of anyone who they can get batteries from, really. So
maybe he'll be buying a few lithium and nickel mines.
Yes.
Well, he has. Tesla do have off-take agreements with the
keeping you up, Gene.
I think. So
he's certainly wanting nickel mines to get cranking.
Oh, and nickel, yes, yeah, absolutely. That's what he said. It's all about the nickel. In fact, it's not really that much about the lithium, because he says we should consider lithium to be a little bit like the seasoning in the battery.
Oh, this whole thing about lithium is just so tedious. Is that just this obsession with lithium when it's really, it's 10% of the battery. It's nickel that's but of course nickel isn't the fancy, nickel is, well, you can get it's, I mean, the name for the coin in America is just a nickel. It's not a fancy name, and I reckon that's got a big part of it. Everyone's obsessed by the lithium. It's tiny.
Absolutely.
It's not unimportant, of course, but it's, I think everyone's losing focus on the bigger mineral requirements here.
Exactly. Hey, one thing I saw that was interesting, I'll show you guys. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's a website called buildingtesla.com. And one cool thing they've got is they've got an aerial, they actually take satellite photos. Well, they use satellite photos from one of the European satellites, which I believe is in a sun synchronous orbit. So it takes the photo at the same time every day, everywhere in the world. Well, the same local time each time. And this is the Terrafactory, Texas. So this was in July this year.
Whoa.
And
awesome.
Now that's the photo from the 8th of August. So you can basically just sweep backwards and forwards and see the progress. So you can also do that for the other factories. So for instance, in the Gigafactory Berlin, if you pick, I think it was February, you can see where it was just a forest and where it is now. So it's one of those cool little things you can do just at your own will, and you can actually change the before photo. Say, for instance, to March, once they'd felled all the trees, to what it is today. And of course, you can do that for all the factories. So the one in Shanghai is quite cool as far as the Model Y line, because if you go again back to February, you can see that that's just a block of land, or here, all this is basically pretty much flat compared to today, compared to, sorry, the 3rd of August. And if you obviously go back to February 2019, that's not a very great photo, but let's say
a cloudy day.
Cloudy day. Let's do it in January.
Pollution.
It was just a field.
A field.
It's where it is now.
So how many other car companies in the world are building 3 factories at the moment?
Well, exactly.
Absolutely. So that's buildingtesla.com. So that's pretty cool. If you're sort of, after you've watched all the daily, well, from the Terrafactory, Texas, they have daily drone YouTube videos. But yeah, that's an easy way of seeing the progress in all the gigafactories.
It's really quite incredible when you put that into perspective. If you compare that to building a residential house in Perth, they can take 4, 6 months, sometimes a year or longer.
That's a good point.
And can take you 3 or 4 months to get your development approval, your building approval. I mean, yeah, even everyone was saying at the beginning that they weren't expecting the Berlin factory to be as fast as Shanghai, but it's on every metric, on every benchmark, seems to be ahead of Shanghai, and looks like Texas is going to be even faster than that. So with every factory, they're learning how to be more efficient. They're learning how to be cheaper and quicker.
And Berlin in particular, where you see they've got those concrete, it's all basically pre-manufactured concrete, and their columns in the most part are just a vertical column with a flat base that they then just sit on a concrete pad that's been pre-prepared, and they're erecting that so quickly it's just not funny.
That's the time lapse for it there.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, those concrete pads are they're not precast. Some of them, the pads cast. It looks like there's a keyway hole in it, and they drop the post into it.
Yeah, that's in the paint shop. They're like more substantial, longer columns. But in the rest of it, so for instance, where they're doing the drivetrain or the drive units, that is just literally a concrete pad that's been pre-prepared, and then the actual column has a square base, and then they just plonk that on top of the pre-prepared foundation. But you're right, Jason, at the paint shop, they've got quite substantial subterranean and highly steel reinforced bases, and they usually put like a red cover, which is
stop the guys falling in the hole. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a bloke who used to set all that stuff out when he used to be a surveyor. Hard work. In the Pilbara.
Well, I tell you what impresses me. You see some of those. I think it's the Wolfpack Berlin, or there's a few YouTube channels that cover the Berlin Gigafactory. And what amazes me is you've got these concrete columns, and then they've got all the prefabricated steel zigzag roof trusses, and these things have to line up within millimeters over hundreds of meters. And you think, wow, it's amazing that it all just fits, and presumably fits well.
Computers.
Laser alignment.
But I guess it definitely does help at Berlin that they've got a great railway line that goes right next to the property, and you can just unload all your stuff. It's just an amazing process.
Apparently in Texas, near Austin, right near the site of the factory, there's a concrete factory, isn't there?
It's actually part of the land they've purchased.
Oh, is it? Right.
Yeah, so apparently what's going to happen is they're obviously going to use the plant now. I mean, it's I forget the company, Marietta, Martin Marietta or something like that, concrete batching plant. And presumably later on, they will then move away. But obviously Tesla will be using that plant with great advantage. I presume it'll still be as a third party, as in, that maybe that plant was leasing that land off whoever originally owned it. But yeah, it's a great advantage. I mean, as you see in Berlin, they actually erected 2 transportable or demountable concrete batching plants that were brought in on trucks.
Yeah, everything seems to be prefabbed in Berlin.
Yes, and it's all prefab concrete, or all the main structural elements except for the roof. And I mean, Elon Musk did warn people that, notwithstanding that we thought that Shanghai was amazing how they did that so quickly, to basically break ground in January and to produce its first Model 3 in October, November.
I think they were about 1,000 cars a week within a year, something like that.
Yes. But he actually said that Berlin will be faster than you can think, which sort of amazes me, because I just presume Berlin would be slower because anything in Europe is slower. But if it's just technique.
Another dog.
Another dog. 2 dogs.
Yeah, but I bet your dog's tongue's not as soft as my dog's tongue. She's I've got the earmuffs on because you can't do the tongue in the ear thing.
My dog's awesome.
Oh, 3 dogs.
Yeah, that's right.
The best I can do is put my car in dog mode.
I'd get my cat, but he won't let me hold him like that.
I'm glad you called her a cat.
Right, this is Poverty Pearl.
Did you just change your camera to be like negative? Because that black dog just turned white.
Yeah, there's a black dog and a white one. They're both. I can't lift them both at the same time. Though.
I was got 2 dogs.
One standard poodle.
I was going to say there's nothing standard about that one.
So you've all heard the joke about 2 dogs, have you?
What, from Adelaide?
No, about the kid is an American Indian. Pete's got a see-through dog.
Harold's got a dog too. Ask Harold where his dog is.
Oh, it's downstairs.
It's
I think is he,
In a drug-
how old is he, Jason? 15?
in a drug-induced coma because you got his needles mixed up.
He's a diabetic dog. So
Yeah,
he
most
gets-
of them.
He gets insulin every day.
Uh,
Dear, oh dear.
poor Jerry.
Poor puppy.
Indeed, poor Jerry.
You can hardly tell this one doesn't have a spleen.
Oh, hey, here's a good question. So, Jason,
Yes.
what is more affordable, a brand new Powerwall
For a dog.
or to fix a skinny dog?
Yes. Adjusted for inflation.
Yeah, let's call it that.
I know we're trying to get more loving out of.
And it's not the dog.
Yes, indeed.
Well,
They are expensive.
Might leave you
Hey.
guys to it.
Yeah, cool. No worries, Pete. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're probably just as excited about you getting a car as you are. It's a
Absolutely.
wonderful thing, and it's worth every minute that you wait.
Yeah.
I had
I'm
a
not-
funeral at Caracat. I'm sorry, but
I'm not sure about the white seats and dogs, but
Oh, Peter, I
Yeah.
have I've got a dog, and I got a thing from some mob in America, Abstract Ocean or someone, and it's a cover that goes over the back seats, so it hooks
Yeah.
over your two things, goes down the back seat, along the back seat, down on the floor, and under your chairs,
Yeah.
so any dog hair doesn't go anywhere, and it's got a slot to put in your so you put your seatbelt in, click in, and clicks onto the dog's harness, so the dog can't jump around.
we've got
It's
one for
brilliant.
the other car, so that's fine. And poodles don't shed hair, so there's no hair around.
Oh, my dog does. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
No worries. Sorry, you've got one. But yeah, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one from Kmart, $21.
Yeah, they were cool.
It's good.
Cool.
I need one with a bit more grip on it because the whippet normally stands up, but the other one, when you give it the boot, all you can hear is the dog just sliding across the mat in the back of the car. No one's
So
got
it
car
doesn't-
seat yet though.
So that's why it doesn't have a spleen. Is that right?
2 bitches, a few years apart. Yes, had one. They have turns every 6 months. So I'm putting each other's heads in the other one's mouth, and the whippet came off worse last time. And over about 2.5, 3 weeks, blood infections, and then septicemia and a spleen and necrosis and rah. It's just it was a fiasco. So the joke about the battery was it ended up costing 14 grand. So
Yeah, I gather. Yeah.
and yes, I'm a keen shooter and I do have a surplus of, projectiles, but not for daddy's.
You
I'll
wouldn't
stop,
know.
I'll stop at 10 on the kids, so I'm prepared to go a bit more for the dog.
As you say, where do you get more love from?
Absolutely. No, that's right. Less answering back.
Dear, oh dear.
Yeah, Harold knows. He's got a thing for whippets. Don't worry about that.
I'm just going to quickly fade to
Oh, wow.
the gig of Berlin. Yeah, so that what you're seeing there is actually the powertrain building where they're doing the motors.
And unlike
So-
China, they must do it at night time because all you see is growth and building,
Yeah,
but
no
you never
people.
see anyone doing it.
Yeah, I think this one was actually filmed on a Sunday where there's literally no one on
Yes.
site, which is the first time it's ever been like that.
The China was swarming in dudes, and Germany is just people in machines.
And yeah, all those low columns are actually just plonked on top of foundations. So the one that Jason was talking about before are these ones where you've got the red bits where the actual big column goes in.
Yeah.
And this is below ground level, or that's at ground level. But further along, you'll see in the other section, back. Yeah, see here, these columns, these are just self-standing. They're standing on top of these sort of pads. So that's all they are, prefabricated and plonked on top. And that's, I think that section is the body in white part of the factory. In fact, one of these YouTubers actually, oh, here we go. That's the cut, that's the side as you see it now. And that's how it will be when it's finished.
Phase 1.
Which is only, and that's right, Jason, it's just phase 1. It's one of 4 phases, so that'll be 4 times the size.
There will be no trees.
No.
Elon must hate the Fremont factory. I've been on a tour and it's such a hodgepodge compared to these new ones they're making.
Yes, and the tour guide, well, I think Elon Musk himself has said that the way they have to change levels and they got robots that changes position and takes it from here down to there, it's just a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. And he learned on Shanghai that the best, he learned it in that tent.
In the tent, yeah.
You know,
hey, we've all learned something in the tent. Hey.
Brings back memories.
What I'm worried about is when the hibernating bats come back to Berlin. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah,
the hibernating bats remember there was this one tree left and they had a hibernating bat. As soon as it flew off, they could do everything else. There's one tree left, but they're going to come back. It's going to be.
I guess the thing with Berlin as well is that Tesla Grohmann Engineering have got a lot of stake. You know, being a German factory, so you know, I guess if anyone's going to be wanting to kick on the project as quick as possible, it's going to be them. But
what a wonderful thing to do is to buy out one of the world's best robot manufacturers and basically guarantee that you get the first run of everything.
Yep. And cancel all the other projects for all the other for BMW and Mercedes.
And still keep all the unionised workforce happy.
Yep.
Hang on, Richard. You're assuming that BMW and Mercedes are building factories.
Yeah, they're closing.
Well,
them.
no, not factories, but I'm pretty sure that Grohmann Engineering did do projects for those companies, which obviously then got canned. All right, we're not going to do that anymore. Which I think upset a few of the staff employees. But it's like, well, shucks to be you.
And what do you think of the whole BMW power of choice business, the way they're building their cars? Isn't that nuts?
It's like self-charging Toyotas.
Yeah.
Spin.
This thing is a self-charging hybrid.
But imagine every single car you design as an EV is destroying your own built-up factory infrastructure. And
they're not even building them well because they're a compromise.
Yep.
Exactly.
They're just hoping that it'll somehow just go away somehow, or it'll just
like a certain virus is just going to go away.
Yeah.
Russians just fix that up.
I think that will. No one else. I mean, I guess from my perspective, no one else is a direct competitor like BMW is. I mean, it's just, you know, it's the S is gunning straight for the 7 Series. The Model X is straight for the X5. The Y is straight for the X3. The Model 3 is the 3 Series. You know, it's like, I mean, it's very much, you know, price parity as well. Like, you know, it's like there's guys just in one of the next houses here. They've got an X5, and we were having a great chat, and they were loving the Model 3, and I think BMW owners seem to be. I've noticed a bit of a correlation, I guess. I don't know whether I'm just noticing something that doesn't exist, but seem to be very like, you know, that's in my price range with sort of my level of expectation. So
are you just heavily biased, Rich?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
but it's Tesla should have been BMW. This is what they should have done. So
I'm just watching the share price a couple of minutes out from open.
Oh, yeah.
We're up $94. So
Yeah, do most companies, when they're talking about doing a share dilution, presumably go down, or is this normal?
No,
Rob Mauer
usually-
indicated they go slightly up.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
I'm not surprised. But...
It doesn't
What are they
make
sitting at?
any sense if you read any textbooks on efficient market hypotheses or anything like that.
Yeah.
They will tell you that
on emotion.
Yeah, it shouldn't go up. But you read any behavioural economics books, and it will tell you why.
Yep.
Why it goes up. But yeah, most companies have a spike when there's a stock split. Because it opens up more of the market, so more people can afford to buy shares. But it's also a vote of confidence by management, or it's perceived that way, that that the price isn't going to go down, back down to those lower levels.
And those splits don't always occur a week or two out from S&P inclusion. Or a month or so away from Battery Day or anything else.
What it's saying is that the share market in the short term is a voting machine. In the long term, it's a weighing machine.
Yeah.
So
Warren Buffett's famous saying.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Yeah. So it does, and humans go, well, this company is doing so well, they need to split because the share price is so valuable. I better get some of those. It's as simple as that.
Well, I'm now thinking of buying them, and I, never really seriously thought about it before.
We're getting back to our discussion earlier when we were talking about share ownership and the companies that do fractional shares. So, they're way safer if you can buy a whole share and it's yours rather than half a share that was someone else's.
And you get the voting rights too, and you've got more control over your shares, like you were saying, Jace, about making your shares available to be lent out, to be shorted.
Yeah, that was the two reasons I did it, Pete, was I wanted to vote and I didn't want the short sellers having access to them.
Yeah. One interesting thing, I don't know if you guys have noticed, is that their share price, Tesla's share price over the last at least month has been like a pretty tight trading range between, say, 1,400 to 16 and hovering around the 15. I mean, yesterday was a little bit lower, but I think, Jason, you're saying we're probably
1470 now. 1470.
Yeah, cool. It's really interesting how it's just in this tight trading range at the moment. And it'll be interesting to see once they get into the S&P, whether that breaks out of that again or...
Well, we all love to read stuff that aligns with our hopes and desires, but that Kathy chick from Ark Investment, I like listening to her. She reaffirms everything I want to happen. So the longer it stays flat, apparently, the more chance it's got of going up further.
She's right. The longer it stays flat and the tighter the band, the bigger the breakout. That's technical analysis theory, but it seems to be.
Time will tell, but
we had quite a time at around 300 to 400, and then it just went mad after that. So who knows?
Yeah, my young fellow was kicking himself. He's nearly got in at 380 or something. Ended up doing 550, which is pretty good for a 16-year-old.
That's fantastic.
I said, never ever again in your life, Aaron, when you lose all your money, will you still have a meal and a bed? If you lose all your money.
Hey guys, one thing that I've been scratching my head about is, so you touched on this earlier, Harold. So the way they're doing it, this is quite unusual. We don't usually get too many stock splits in Australia, but you were talking about, so the way the stock split's going to happen is by way of dividend, where you receive 4 shares for every 1 share held on the 21st of August. So a couple of things there. So obviously that can't be a taxable event, because if it was, that would mean that 80% of your shareholding would now be subject to tax.
I think it's just poor.
And stock splits usually aren't.
Yeah, I think it's just poor wording, Pete. Like I said, when I heard the wording, I thought, oh no, that's correct. What are they talking about? There can't be a dividend. It's not like they're creating money. They're simply dividing. But like I said, it might be just the way perhaps the American financial system works, or stock system. They just describe it as a dividend. I mean, really, they should just say that shares are substituted, because I guess you could say, maybe what they're saying is in the old days, you would, when they did have literally individual share certificates, or at least numbered share certificates, maybe they're saying that you keep those certificates. You are then given by I guess it depends what the English word of dividend means. You know, we understand it as a distribution.
Yeah.
But maybe they're saying it in more like the divisor type, or portions per or something, perhaps. So it might be a different.
Might just be semantics then.
Yes, like a different mnemonic that they're describing the term for splitting.
An Americanism.
Yeah.
Strangulation thing.
Yeah. So, like I said, when I first heard it, and I heard it, Rob Mauer on Tesla Daily quote the actual press release.
I read it this morning, and
I thought it was really strange. But no, I think, fear not, it will literally just be a standard split. And
what can't be stock splits are never subject to tax, because there is nothing changes. So, the way a stock split, I mean, you know, the traditional way it used to happen is you would hand your old share certificate back, your share certificate of 1 share, and you would receive 5 new share certificates.
Yes.
So for 5 additional shares. So that's the way it used to. I mean, you know, and your cost base you just divide your cost base by 5 for every share.
Yes.
But one thing that's going to be interesting, because the record date is the 21st of August. The new shares don't start trading till the 31st of August.
Oh, okay.
There's a 10-day gap.
No, I thought it was the 28th, Pete. I thought it was like a Friday, and then the next trading day was the Monday.
Correct.
No, Jason, the record date is the 21st of August. So they actually look at who had what shares on the 21st of August. And the way it was worded, it was implying that those people that held shares on that date would then receive 4 additional shares on the 28th, and they would commence trading on the 31st.
Correct.
Right.
But I just don't get. Maybe that's the way they've worded it, but maybe it actually attaches to whoever actually owns the share. I don't. You're right, Pete. That's interesting. You're right. I don't know how that works.
Well, I think that's right. So I'm thinking that what's going to happen is on the 22nd of August, or the next trading day after the 21st, what will happen is the shares will effectively trade, all else remaining equal, at a fifth of their price. So it'd be similar to a stock trading on an ex-dividend basis.
But you'll only have 20% of the holding to dispose of. No. I thought they said no. Didn't it say that they would then start trading at the new price on the 31st?
Yeah, they might have a trading halt.
Stop them trading whilst they got it all sorted.
Yeah, I don't think they'd do a trading halt for that. I mean, you don't usually do a trading halt unless you announce it during market hours, which they didn't. They announced it after market.
No, I think Nigel was alluding to they might have to suspend trading until the new shares actually get issued. But then you'd think you'd do that overnight. You know, you would just.
Yeah, you wouldn't take the stock off market for 10 days, 10 calendar days, just to do a stock split. So I'm thinking that on the next trading day after the 21st, the shares will be trading, you know, or should be trading at a fifth of their price, because it will be effectively the same as a stock trading on an ex-dividend basis.
But that would then imply that if you wanted to sell out, you could only sell out 20% of what you had, and then you have to wait for the other 80% to arrive on the Friday for you to trade on the Monday.
Yeah, because it says to be distributed after close of trading on August the 28th.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would be right, Harold. You for 10 days, you'd only be able to sell a fifth of your. Yeah.
So, but what if you then had a margin call?
Very good question. Buy some put options.
Controversial, and ask us anything.
Luckily, I'm not a sophisticated trader. It's not my problem.
No,
that's right. I'll just be sitting back on NAB trade going, show me the numbers.
Hold.
It's quite unusual. We in Australia, like I said, we don't usually have that many stock splits. So, yeah, it's the first one.
But don't forget too, Pete, that we actually have them early. We have them early, but often, as in, we never usually get shares to get much more above $100 before they split them off.
Last one I had was Lend Lease about 20 years ago, and it didn't end well. Poor Tim.
Yeah, I like I said, I mentioned the penny dreadfuls. I like the fact that people think they're safe, and then they'll just do a consolidation, and they'll turn your 0.2% share into 10 of them into one share at 2 cents, and then they'll proceed to go down to 1 cent and half a cent and keep on going. Oh dear.
It's amazing though, you know, talking about psychology before, I still have people that ring me up, and number of times I've tried to explain it, but people just think that if a share trades at $2 versus a share that trades at $20 or $200, the $2 share is cheaper. You know, it's you know, the number of times, you know, I've tried to say it's the same as having, you know, your kids want pocket money and you've got a $50 note versus having $5, $10 notes. You know, there is no change in value. You're just dividing. But yeah, a number of people that still find that hard to get their heads across is.
Accountants use those calculators, the really big ones with the big buttons, because it's not that hard. It's just plus and minus and multiply, and that's accounting. Yeah, but people can't get their heads around that. It's like compound interest. It's pretty basic stuff, but it'll sink you.
Did you see the fact that it was on Tesla Daily with Rob Maurer? He actually explained that the Dow Jones index is actually different, and it actually sums the share value, the individual share, like the number, like if it's $3 or $100, and that was it that they're not including Tesla because the share price is too high and too distorting. So if the price went down to closer to the average share price, then they would include it in the Dow Jones. And then I think if it gets below a certain figure, it gets deleted, which was really strange. Whereas all the other indices, they have a proportional representation in the index to work it out. But the Dow Jones apparently is almost like you get your BHP shares at $100 and your FMG shares at whatever, and you just add those numbers up as if that was like an even way of doing it.
It reminds me of what Elon Musk was saying about regulations. One of the problems with regulations is once you put them in, they're there for perpetuity.
Yeah.
And they have they have lots of
unintended.
Yeah.
He said that in the Automotive Daily podcast, didn't he? He said that, you know, he doesn't mind California per se, but he said, you know, one problem is there's just so many regulators that everything's so divided into so many different forms and regulations you got to meet.
Yeah, too many revs on the field. But
yes, more revs and more. Yeah, that's right. More revs and players.
Yeah. But yeah, and so what he was saying is once you create a regulation, you know, it's there in perpetuity. There is no automatic process for that regulation to be reviewed or taken away. And I think that's the problem with the Dow Jones. It's the oldest index, you know, there is that still survived. And it's got some of these, you know, very outdated, you know, and it just doesn't make any sense, that whole methodology, but it's there because no one's changed it.
Well, I mean, there's loads of old archaic rules about, you know, you can shoot a Welshman with a bow and arrow after midnight on a certain bridge in London, you know, as long as he's got red hair. So, you know, there's all these weird sort of technically legal, still existing rules and laws from hundreds of years ago. And we just accumulate them.
And the problem is people, because they're irrelevant, people forget about them until something happens and there's a court case and some smart lawyer digs this law up and uses it to, you know, to their advantage. So often unfairly, but, you know, it's the
yeah, and then it's up to the judge to either interpret it exactly as it is, or, you know, or rule, you know, holistically.
Mm.
Did you see that Elon Musk was saying it was good? He didn't blame California's environmental laws for Tesla's less than ideal paint job. He actually said, I mean, he did then go on to say that it's vastly improved, but he did basically concede that it could be better, which we all know, and hopefully will improve.
Going to be no paint in Texas.
Hurry up. No, there will be, because I'll be doing S's. No, they were doing 3s and Y's, which we could care less about, for the eastern states.
Hey, did you hear that talking about starting a wrapping service
in China?
Tesla? Yeah, where Tesla would in-house wrap the cars. So with obviously, you could choose, presumably, 15, 20, 50, 100 different wraps.
They just announced that they're doing the insurance in China as well.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
What was that?
Tesla Insurance, it's on in California. They're now rolling it out to China.
I don't know how many other people watch Fully Charged, but they're doing so many videos about vehicles that are in China. There's like handfuls of SUVs, and like China's going crazy for EVs. It's just nuts. Like, and very few agencies seem to cover what's happening there. But yeah, the battery production, insurance, EVs got like 500,000 EVs sold, and we've to cars that we've never heard of.
Yeah, Elon's just a CCP stooge.
There's like 100 different brands in China.
Yeah,
100 different EV brands. XPeng is NIO and
but NIO doing the battery swap. It's heaps.
They reckon XPeng is that's Tesla is suing XPeng for one of the employees taking that thumb drive and another one emailing to their personal account and stuff. But,
what a surprise.
But XPeng's they just seem like, apparently the websites is, even the way the menus are set out, the way you scroll the website, it just seems like a complete knockoff.
Can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Rob Mauer, he had a little video about XPeng, or a section of his video. And you're right, it scrolls the same. The way they visualize the ultrasonics and the autopilot detection or whatever is exactly the same. The binnacle, the way that they show the blue parallel lines on autopilot or whatever is the same.
But the boss of them in that same video also said, open source, we're happy to do it. Yeah, so
I don't think Musk's got a problem. I think that's why he was, why they open source the patents.
Because they're always going to be 5 years behind.
Yeah.
Except Musk's problem was someone used one of these on the autopilot stuff, which was naughty.
Yes. But it's China, so.
But isn't that the scary thing? I mean, I think this is a 64 gigabyte thumb drive, which could hold all the source code of everything. That's, it's the length it's smaller than your pinky finger, and you can hide it anywhere.
You can get a micro SD card that can store 512 gig now.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Wow.
I think setting up factory in China and having Chinese employees and thinking this isn't going to happen, you're fooling yourself.
But having said that, isn't it fantastic or amazing that Tesla is the first, car company and probably any substantial company that has built their own factory on Chinese soil?
Yeah, and the Chinese, have allowed them to wholly own it. It's incredible.
Yes, without a local partnership, which is really just a euphemism for technology transfer means or device.
That should be headline news. This is incredible. I don't think most people realise how enormous that is politically.
But then the Teslax just swerve that around to tell us that Muskie's just a CCP stooge.
Sure.
But yeah.
Except CCCP is not China, it's the wrong...
two C's, not three.
Regime.
CCP, not CCCP.
Oh, right, sorry, okay. I was going the CCCP.
Yeah, no, the two Cs.
I was going OCP, Omni Consumer Products.
Right. Yeah. I think I'd probably rather have a made in China Model 3, to be honest, than a made in Fremont.
Same.
And that's something else that Elon said. He said that, you know, the Chinese are hardworking. Back in California, well, the western states and New York, they're used to winning, accustomed to winning. He said, you know, like
slacked off.
Major League footy team that is used to winning and then doesn't do that well because they feel entitled and yeah, lose their edge. But yeah, hopefully I do hope that perhaps the Model Y will be coming from Shanghai to Australia, and that would be just fantastic. You know, let's hope it does, and then all the Fremont ones can stay in the States until the Terafactory.
I certainly think Tesla China's quality control is, well, it eclipses Fremont really, by all accounts.
Yeah, and there was that survey, that Chinese survey of defects in new cars, and Tesla rated 0.4 of a defect. No, 0.7, sorry, per something, 10,000 cars or something, or 1,000 cars. And the next best performer was 4 defects. So Tesla was 0.7, and the next best was 4. And I think there was a model of Buick in China, of all things, that rated at 50 or 45 defects or 54 defects per something.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Model 3s apparently are really top notch, which makes sense. They've got a shiny new factory that's perfectly set up.
But I think also if the Chinese makers are making Model 3s for the Chinese market, you know, it looks terrible on them socially, you know, if the cars are coming out, but for their own people, you know, with flaws. I think there's just that cultural difference, I think.
It's a
Because
status
they integrate.
well to have a Tesla, so.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
As long as they don't come out with TikTok and WeChat integrated, we should be all right.
Yeah.
So here's a $64,000 question. Do you buy Tesla shares now before the split, or wait till they're split and then buy them with lots and lots of other people so they go up?
I think the split is well and truly factored in. So I think it got factored in straight away. I mean, it shouldn't, theoretically, you know, there shouldn't be anything to factor in. But if you wanted to factor in the psychological impact and all that, but there's so many other good things to be looking forward to. I mean, you know, you've got the possible S&P inclusion, you've got 22nd of September, you know, Battery Day, you know, you've got all the factories, the news, you know, that's going to come out of those, more Model Ys, you know, production figures. There's just, you know, there's a whole pipeline of possible news to come out.
S&P inclusion particularly, I think that's going to send them into orbit.
And you've got the FSD rewrite, and, you know, as Elon Musk said, that, you know, once that's been put into the cars, and once they start iterating that, the iterations are going to be, you know, quite substantial and quite quick. So, you know, it'll be, you know, exponential, or, you know, more exponential or close to exponential, but yeah, it should be an accelerated improvement in.
And the Plaid Model S is going to raise the bar again.
Oh,
so all those ones that think they're catching up now, just going to have another massive big hurdle to get over.
I was when I there was a time when Tesla shares went up to 300, and it was just wow, and then you never get to 500, you know. You go, it's that, you know. And then it's like, my last time I bought shares 1,500. It's actually more than it is now. There's a lot, you know. If you're talking about another Apple, or, you know, Google or whatever, then really you may look back and, you know, if you're Kathy from Ark Invest or whatever, you may look back and think, well, that, you know, remember when it was only 1,500. So you know, the long term is still, look, there are some big negatives. There's things like, Biden's sort of 60% billionaire tax. And if he gets in, even he'll get knocked back now by the Republicans. But if he gets in, which is supposedly quite possible, that tax in $27 billion. Elon just doesn't get his pocket money. It's all locked in share options and so on. So that I think is really a big, quite scary. And it'll not take the Tesla shares in half at least. I would have thought that's really to my mind, the big negative at the moment. I mean, China could, America drops an atom bomb on China, it's going to really mess up the Chinese market. Elon
might get a surprise back.
China and US, so he's actually will be spread over 3 different continents, and I think that makes it a bit more insurance against major local politics or disasters or whatever.
Well, it's funny because. It was, I forget when it was actually, because, you got COVID time, which everything just dilates out to like feeling like it's forever. But I remember when Tesla was, it hit past the 500, 600, 700. And then I remember having a shower and it sort of popped up $90 in 5 minutes. And I almost had that numb feeling of going, wow, this is just amazing. It's almost scary. Like it felt like it was on a tear, like a short squeeze, which apparently they haven't yet had. But
not a true one.
I was joking with my secretary because she was saying, oh, should I buy Tesla shares? And I go, well, at $1,000, they're kind of expensive. And I don't know, they could go down, but maybe when they're $5,000, they'll feel really cheap. And sure enough, a few weeks later, they hit sort of 1,500, and then COVID hit and then they went down to $348, I think. And now they hit their all-time high of 1,895, I think, just a few weeks ago. And now they're at about 1,500. But yeah, in answer to your, well, not answer because we're not doing share trading advice. But yeah, Pete, I mean, I guess the point is it's on your time frame. If you want to try and do day trading, which is interesting but challenging, or if you just accumulate, well, who cares now if you pay 1,500 and they go down to 1,200 tomorrow and then come up to 1,800 the week later.
It's very interesting that I've had 2 financial advisors that both told me, no, you've got to have an exit strategy, sell 50% of what you got, 2 of them said that, and they said it repeatedly. And I said, no, look, this is a long-term investment, this is, and now they would have pulled me out and I would have been, I wouldn't have a Model 3. And, but now it's, I've been able to afford it.
They don't understand the stock.
No.
And you know what? And no one, I used to be a stockbroker for 12 years, so I've got a bit of an insight into how these guys think. And most of Wall Street it's never understood the stock. It's starting to now get its head around some parts of it, but it's still way behind the curve. So the professionals have never understood Tesla. They've always looked at it as a automotive stock. Yep. Now they're starting to understand they need to price it as a tech stock. But it's not just a tech stock. It's not even.
It's an energy stock.
Kathy Wood has got the best approach in that she uses 3 or 4 analysts. She's got an analyst who used to be ex-NVIDIA, so he understands the chips. And there's 4 or 5 analysts that cooperate when they produce a report, and no one's been more right on the stock than she has. So, but one thing, just a couple of things just to keep in mind in terms of valuation. So the stock's valued $300 billion, something like that. Now, if you just think about just FSD just on its own, so Elon Musk said that the cars could produce $30,000 US in annual revenue as a robo-taxi. Now, if you assume that they take, 25% of that as a cut, even if we've just based it on 1 million vehicles, the fleet is over 1 million now. So next year, probably be, 2 million. But let's just assume, that it's on 1 million cars and you multiply 1 million by 30,000. I've just done this on the spreadsheet. So that gets you to 30 billion. Multiply that by 25%, you get to 7.5 billion. Multiply that by a 30 price to earnings ratio, and there's $225 billion. So, you know, I mean, sure, some of that is built into the share price, but not, I guarantee you Wall Street isn't, you know, the Wall Street analysts aren't, you know, and most of them still can't get their head around this 50% compound annual growth rate. So, you know, and that's confined just to the automotive part of the business, let alone FSD and software, insurance, and energy, and you know, and the advantage that Elon Musk is now focusing on, which is the machine that builds the machine. So, you know.
Yeah, that's dead on, Pete. I mean, there's one of the major analysts they've got one of the lowest target prices for Tesla, which was in the order of $200 and something. And what they're basing that on is the discounted cash flow rate of Tesla's automotive division projected 2021 results. And they're ignoring energy, batteries, everything else, except for what Tesla is projected to produce in cars by the middle of next year or the end of next year. And they're ignoring everything forward of that. They're ignoring what the Berlin factory is going to produce, what the Shanghai Model Y factory is going to produce, what the Terra factory in Texas is going to produce, because they don't know how to deal with that. They just ignore it. They're discounting the cash flow to the end of 2021, and that's the limit of their horizon.
Yeah.
I think there's another factor here, which I haven't actually seen people talk about. If you're an analyst, and they're all giving below market sort of rates and saying, you know, but if you're an analyst and you've got a customer, and if you make it too low and they go higher, well, that's fine. But if you make your estimate too high, and then the customer loses money, that's much worse for them than the other way around. You know, so if the company does better, then it's a good company, we've got you in. But if it's the other way around, if they lose money, that's bad. I think that might be part of the reason why the analysts are always that much lower than what would seem a sensible rate. I mean, a couple of them are just in big oil's pockets and so on, and they've got if the company's worth $10, you know, type of thing. It's crazy. But yeah.
So the big fear of analysts is oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go on, Pete, you go.
No, I was just going to say the big fear of analysts is being too far away from the herd and being too much of an outlier and looking, you know, coming out with egg on your face. So they all try, and the fund managers are the same. So, and a lot of them focus, the problem is the way they're compensated. So they're compensated based on relative benchmarks rather than absolute results. So, you know, if they lose 30% of your money in 1 year, when the market's gone down 40%, they're celebrated as, you know, having only lost you 30% when the market lost you 40%. But it means you've got to make 50% just to get back to where you were. There's a lot of problems with the industry.
Yeah, I recall when I was looking at FMG at about 2009, I think it was, and they hadn't actually delivered their first ton of iron ore yet. And all the analysts basically said it's speculative, it's risky, which, you know, there is a bit of risk, obviously, and their prices were quite low. And yet, as soon as they delivered their first shipment, there was a step change in the price. Yeah. And it was that they just couldn't bring themselves to looking a little bit further into the future and seeing the structure. They just need in concrete terms. And yeah, like you say, Pete, they're really risk adverse to themselves. They want to be in the nice normal curve, just cluster in with all your mates. Yeah. And don't keep your head above the field because it might get lopped off.
And it's that short-sightedness as well, because just like the CEOs, you know, it's based on, you know, it's the next quarter or maybe the quarter after that. And most of the research says that stock markets look ahead about 6 months on average, which is an incredibly short time frame for a company, that's one of the great things, one of the advantages of Cathy Wood. I mean, her time frame is 5 years, and all her projections are based on 5 years rather than 12 months. And I mean, that just makes a ton more sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely, especially for a long-term investor. I mean, some of those major analysts are projecting Tesla's car sales at 1.5 million. See you, Richard. You gone?
No, see you, Nigel.
Oh, sorry, Nigel. Oh, yeah. See you, Nigel. Yeah, they're projecting Tesla's vehicle sales in 2030 to be 1.5 million. I mean,
they're going to be there within 24 months.
Absolutely.
So.
and continuing to grow.
The problem is, I think one of the biggest differentiators between people that have got it right with Tesla and people that have got it wrong is, the way I look at it is, you've got to give Elon the benefit of the doubt, because if you look at his track record, he's proven himself over and over and over against all the odds. So it's almost irrational to not give him the benefit of the doubt and to be betting against what he says. But all these analysts, they're completely ignoring, I mean, he's said this numerous times. Rob Mowers picked it up a few times, his last two questions. I think he got 3 out of 3 questions in the last Q1 call. But,
yeah.
Both quarters, his question was around that, getting Elon to reaffirm the 50% compound annual growth rate. And he said, look, it might be 40%, but if it was anything less than 40%, he'd be extremely surprised, other than,
World War III or something, wasn't it? Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, if the CEO of the company, if the founder of the company, if the guy who doesn't take a cent from the company, apart from, 100% of his remuneration comes from the performance of the stock, and he owns a fifth of all the stock, and if you don't give, and this is a guy, the only private person that's put people into outer space. I mean, if this is the guy that you refuse to give the benefit of the doubt to, I mean, to me, that's irrational. That's just silly.
It's funny because I'm still a bit, do I really think the full self-driving is really going to work? But exactly as you say, it's like, that's an irrational, he's 10 times smarter than I could ever dream to be. So it's, it's an irrational thing to go, oh, I don't know if he's got it right on this one.
Well, what gives me a lot of faith in the FSD is what he said. I think this was on the last Q2 earnings call. So I think he said that what gives him the confidence to believe that FSD is going to come to fruition is the fact that he's driving the alpha version, and he's seeing it on a daily basis. So he's driving the rewrite, the code rewrite, and he's basically reaffirmed that by the end of the year, he sees the car being able to take you from home to work with virtually no interventions from the driver. So you might have to intervene every now and then, but mostly, and that's including roadworks, that's including stop signs, traffic lights, the car making turns, giving way, all the rest.
Just thinking about it, I think a lot of these analysts, I think the problem they might have with Musk is that he tells the truth. He genuinely says what he thinks, what he believes, which is proven, true. And I think they're just so used to hearing people lie.
Yeah.
Oh yes, our stock is amazing, it's incredible, we've got this incredible thing coming. Whereas people just don't believe that someone's genuine.
You know what? And I think you're on the money there. I also think don't forget, CNBC, if you have a look who they're owned by, and they have a lot of pull, in the investment community in the US. But, there's a reason why Tesla gets no mainstream media coverage. If you have a look, most media companies, whether it's radio, print or TV, most of the advertising, especially the expensive ads, are for cars.
Yes.
And so now you've got a bloke who's made it his mission in life to basically bankrupt or make these companies irrelevant. Not only that, and that's your main revenue source, not only that, he's gone out to say that the very thing that you rely on for your existence is nothing more than trickery. So he's calling advertising trickery. And this is, you know, what you rely on. And, you know, and he's saying this publicly, you know, no surprise that CNBS, as it's also known, you know, gives him a bad rep most of the time. I mean, today was a perfect example. So I looked at CNBC and they had an article about the stock split, and underneath is a video of some analyst why he believes that the stock, you know, why he's got a $900 target on the stock. So, you know, they're being a little bit more subtle now, but yeah, the amount of airtime that they gave to this, you know, very vocal short sellers, and I've got nothing wrong with short selling, nothing against short selling. Short selling is a completely legitimate way of making money in the market. What the problem is when the short sellers start spreading rumors.
Well, yes, that's been the issue.
True. And you know, for nefarious reasons or for their own benefit. And that's fraud, that's illegal, that's, you know, and just the amount of time that they give to some, you know, airtime that they've given to these people over the last 5 years. Incredible.
Sorry, too right, Pete. No, you're dead right. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry about that, Rand. But
and that's why the SEC's been all over those people.
No, Pete. These whole 2.5 hours is just a big rant. That's what we're here for.
do you know the one thing that does worry me is that Musk is disrupting so many trillion-dollar industries or multi-billion-dollar industries. You know, I just hope that he's well protected, because I think if anything happened to him, without going, you know, I think that's it.
No, but Musk did say he was confident that even if he died tomorrow, that Tesla is in a position he can say cruise on and still do fantastically well
for the next 10 years.
You know,
he can say that, but I just feel like under his singular vision and direction, I think it would lose its way.
Actually, you know what? There's a little fruit company called Apple. That is the perfect example.
Yes, which has survived without Jobs. Yes,
and there were times when, if Jobs didn't come back, you know, Jobs was expelled, Jobs came back, it saved the company.
Yeah, true.
That company was so profoundly broken.
Yeah.
And he single-handedly saved it. But he's been dead for, it must be several years now.
Yeah,
many years.
Tim Cook, it got to that point, didn't it, where it was...
On the other hand, though, Harold, since Steve Jobs passing, there's really only been one new product that's come out of Apple, and that's been the Apple Watch.
Yes.
And by all accounts, I mean, it's not a, you know, it's not a disruptive, you know, industry.
I love my Apple Watch, but I mean, it's not going to break the world.
Yeah, but when they were $1 trillion company, they went, oh, maybe that's the limit. Now they're 1.5 trillion. So with one product and a new leader, geez, they've done all right. So
yeah, and I think Pete,
but you're saying
you
the
mentioned
pace of
earlier
innovation has slowed.
Yes, but it hasn't hurt the company's market cap.
No. Sure.
Sorry, one great parallel that you mentioned earlier, Pete, was Tesla's silicon, right? There's a fantastic parallel again, because Apple now have announced that they've produced their own silicon for the iDevices, and now they're doing it for their PCs. So it's just an interesting parallel where, you know, Apple is more vertically integrated, albeit I believe, you know, all their production is effectively outsourced. Although, you know, to call Foxconn outsourced, I mean, well, you know, it's not that Apple are actually doing it, but you could virtually call Foxconn and Apple the same thing, really. It's just two different entities.
It's like an exclusive subcontractor who does only work he does is for Apple.
And as a very small businessman, you come to understand that it's great to have lots of customers, and when you've only got one customer, they end up owning your business.
Yeah.
You know, basically, because they've got control of your destiny. But the parallels between Apple and Tesla are great because there were the knockers, there might have been the setbacks. I mean, look, Tesla, as Elon Musk has said, he negotiated with, was it Sergey from Apple? He was going to sell the company, and it was all going to happen. And he actually said, Vance's book, he said that he got every single employee that was available to get on the phone and try and spruik orders for Model S's and try and get anyone they could to buy a Model S. And somehow, magically, they actually did. And
it was only a matter of about 1 week, Harold.
Yes.
Yeah, it was literally only about a week.
Yes. Yeah. And magically, these orders came in and they knew that they could make it. And then that deal was averted.
Yeah.
And Tesla would not be what it is today if that hadn't happened. But, you know, so they were so close, but so was Apple. Apple had disasters. And they were, you know, they were going broke so quickly it wasn't funny. But yeah, I even remember thinking a few years ago, well, you know, Samsung's doing great with the and Google with Android, and they're going to just smash the iPhone because it's expensive and all that sort of stuff. But Apple, like Jason said, they hit the $1 trillion, you know, figure, and everyone went, well, that's the Mount Everest. It's only going to be downhill from here. And now they've just added a lazy 50% on top. You know,
one of the reasons though is because you know it's now a company that Wall Street can wrap its head around, because now you know it's a company that is so mature now that it's being valued purely on its profitability, whereas you know I think Tesla is very much I mean the two closest companies to Tesla in my mind would be Apple and Amazon. It's you know, Apple for the quality of the products, for the cult-like nature of its consumers, and
the interface.
Amazon for its, you know, for its model, for its business model, and basically just, you know, going for growth, and the profitability will come. So
well, you know, one great model that Apple has, and they militantly stuck to it, was every single app, every single song or whatever, they make 30% margin militantly. And they and you know the giants of Sony and the big music players, companies, were trying to break Apple's 30% attitude, or whatever you want to call it. And Apple just said, we don't care, it's going to be 30%. And every app that's sold on the App Store, sorry, if you provide it for free, they'll distribute it to 1 billion people for free. But if you charge $1 for it, they'll take 30 cents.
Yeah.
And Pete was referring earlier about the robo-taxi fleet. If and when that occurs, I'm certain, Pete, you mentioned 25%.
It'll be 30%.
I reckon they'll do the Apple 30. They'll just say, it's like eBay, it's 30%.
I was trying to be conservative. You're right. 30% is the most likely figure. Yeah.
Yeah, Bill Gates said that anyone can do hardware. You know, it's the software. So I keep looking at this. It's fun watching the green line just keep going up.
So it is. So for people that are watching in the future, when hopefully this share price sounds cheap,
sure,
what are they at the moment, Jace?
Yeah, well, it's up 102.
Nice.
1475. So, and it's started off, did its little opening dip, and it's just merrily marching up. So,
I'd say the opening dip is the high frequency traders trying to do price discovery, dipping it down, and then it just, well, they do say it walks up the stairs and goes down the elevators, but
well, it's pretty reasonable volume as well, because it's 4.5 million already, and that's been an average day for the last week or two.
Yeah.
Given an average is normally 13 million.
Yes.
You want to keep an eye on the volume. You want the volume to be there when it's going up.
Yeah, well,
be on the lighter side when it's coming back.
We're already at what would be a normal day's volume for the last week or so, 4.5 mil.
Yep. Yeah. Well, one of the more modern techniques is it volume spread analysis, Pete?
Sorry guys, I've got to go. Baby issues. So
cool. All right.
Yeah,
Richard,
Good
great
luck.
to see you all.
cheers. See you next week.
See you.
It's actually probably a good time, well, soon to wrap up. But it's great. I mean, we're pumping out heaps of content. So, you know, our mugs will be on the interwebs forever.
Oh, God.
Lucky interwebs. And Princess Chloe's.
As long as they keep all those data centers well protected and looked after.
Mm.
But yeah, cool. Yeah, go the share price. I mean, I don't care what it does today or tomorrow. It's 5 years.
Well,
But
I'm
now
not
we can't talk
the
about
conversation.
$5,000 anymore, can we? Now we've got to say the new target is $1,000.
There was just a meme on Twitter saying that the share split wasn't 1 for 5, it was 4 for 20.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I still like
and you
Rob.
laugh, but that could be the sole logic behind the decision, you know.
Yeah, but
Who
Rob
knows?
Mauer had it better. He said they should have done
69
69 to 1.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But it's the
Yeah.
same ratio. Yeah, you're right.
It's a journey. It's good.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And the great thing is, I've been at work banging my head against the wall for so long, and I don't start the conversation anymore. Other people start it. Oh, the share price is. So I've got friends who've ordered Cybertrucks, reserved them, you know, and they were going to get a Mercedes SLC for their retirement car. Now they've canned that and getting a Cybertruck 62. It's awesome. I think I had a small part to play.
You know, all power to them as long as they wait in line behind us, Jace. And probably, have you got an order, Pete?
Oh, yes.
and Peter Tarrant, you should get a Cybertruck too, because once you're used to having the wasteful Model 3, you'll be wanting a even more awesome Cybertruck.
I wouldn't think of the performance because, you know, I'd just be sort of just not getting a bit old on too. But anyway, look, I'm going to head off. Next time I'll talk about my T-shirt, which is that, which is also.
So the Tesla coil.
Excellent. Well, that can be the first question of next week. Will be
you just Google it, you get the idea.
Awesome. Actually, on that note, I reckon it's probably a good time to wrap up anyway, being 20 past 10 Perth time. Yep. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming, and might as well call this a wrap, eh?
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much.
Nice work. Cheers. See you next week.
See you in the flesh sometime.
Take care. See ya.
See you, mate. See you, mate. See you.